Well, a very good morning from Cambridge and welcome in to all you cycling aficionados from around the country. It is a beautiful day in the home of cycling in this country. It is the 2021 Vantage New Zealand Elite Road Cycling Nationals. Boy, I have been looking forward to this for a year. Such drama last year in 2020, and can 2021 live up to the hype? George Bennett, a little bit later on this afternoon, desperately trying to take the black and white jersey back to Europe. On the women's side, Rushlee Buchanan trying to win 5. Former national champions are out there on the road at the moment trying to grab another jersey in the likes of Georgia Williams. We're going to bring you all the coverage of the closing hour and a half of both races. Joining me in commentary is a man who really needs no introduction. He's won it all on the track. He's won stages and Grand Tours. We'd like to introduce the great Greg Henderson. Greg, welcome.
Thanks very much, and thanks again for having me back for 2021.
Well, firstly, I did touch on the weather. We got here this morning, it was nice and calm, but the breeze just starting to pick up a little bit.
Mate, the sunshine is out. It's going to be very, very warm out there. I'm guessing later in the day, mid to late 20s, which is going to be could be a concerning factor later in the race, the temperature. I don't think the wind so much. It's never really an exposed circuit, but the temperature for sure.
Okay, the women's race, it's basically, it's just under 40k a lap. And you know the course well, so let's just have a look at it and get you to take us through the key, what where you believe strategically could be key points in this race, opportunities for riders to sort of make that break.
Yeah, well, again, it's not rocket science. It's that French Pass Road. It's a very, very brutal climb. It's not long as in time-wise long, but the steepness of it's very, very crucial. And they have to hit it so many times. And then the thing is, after you do that climb, and you want that recovery after a very, very hard effort, it's actually very, very undulating around the back, and there's actually another couple of little pinches that, again, test the legs, and then just as you think it's over with, you turn left and you head back up the backside of Tamero. And that's another tough little test. That as they crest over that into the feed zone, they can take some refreshments, and then they bomb down to Mero and finish the flatter part of the section. So
you've got to be a very good hill climber, but technical skills, the descents, is there opportunity on some of the downhills?
Definitely, actually. If you come off French Pass here, there's some tricky areas there, and as you leave town here, also there's a couple of technical turns. It's probably not something that you'll win the race from, but you potentially could lose it from.
Now, a key thing out today is going to be nutrition, really strategic in itself, easy when you get into that break to forget about those things, but some interesting strategically placed feed zones as well. Tell us a little bit about the feed zones. I mean, you've ridden in Grand Tours, how they're set up, how they do work for maybe those that are not familiar.
Yeah, so the feed zone, obviously, as the title pronounces, it's where you can grab refreshments. It's typically where you'll take a lot of your hydration on. There's not a lot of food. You can normally just about carry enough food in your back pockets. It's more about hydration, and that's going to be key today. The other thing that's going to be very interesting today is the ice packs that they'll take on board. Just again to keep that core temperature as low as possible during the race. And yeah, sure, it's not lap 1, it's not lap 2 that you really suffer. It's the closing end of the stages. So when you're tired, when you're fatigued, and when you're really heating up, it's the ice packs that will really help.
Okay, the women's race, well, it's well and truly underway. 130, just over 130 kilometres in total. I like to sort of say 90 kilometres of hope, 40 kilometres of truth, because you can burn a lot of matches early on. Georgia Williams at the moment is in the break. She comes down here with a big reputation. She's won this race previously. Earlier this morning, Andrew Dewhurst caught up with her.
Well, Georgia, how are you feeling today? Carried good form, obviously, from the time trial. Is this a totally different prospect?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. The time trial win was a good confidence boost, so I'm really hoping for a good race today.
And without giving too much away, tactically, what's your approach today?
It's going to be determined probably on French Pass. Hopefully we can split it up and get the smaller groups going.
Are you looking a little bit at others, but focused on your own plan?
Yeah, I think everyone's going to be looking at me, so I'm going to have to do the work, make it hard, and ride my own race.
Yeah, class act indeed, and she won the New Zealand Time Trial Championships just 2 days ago. And is there always a bit of concern 2 days out doing the New Zealand Time Trial Championship, putting yourself in a bit of a hurt box, and then that ability to recover 2 days later?
Oh, I think elite athletes, they don't have a problem with that. The recovery, nutrition and everything that goes down now, the recovery is pretty quick these days. But you heard from that interview there, she said French Pass will be the key and looking forward to attacking it, and she's done exactly that.
Yeah, and she has won this road race in the past. 2018, she won it. She's been runner-up 217, 216, 213. So you sort of sense that she's really now just coming into her own.
Yeah, she's a developing rider. She's now obviously riding for Bike Exchange, which was obviously the Mitchelton. So she's a very, very accomplished bike rider.
Okay, well, she's also in the break with Kate McCarthy. Now, Kate McCarthy last year led this women's race for a long, long time before being slowly reeled in. And so it was only appropriate that we caught up with her because she's pretty simple when it comes to race tactics.
Kate, memories of last year, a bold effort. We're going to see something similar today?
Not too sure just yet. It's a long day out there, so give it a good shot, but hopefully get in a break and see how it goes.
What do you make of the course compared to last year? Tougher, easier, perhaps not the big climb, but more climbs?
Yeah, I quite like this year's course, not so much flat, which I think's what sort of lost me out last year was the flat through the town circuit, so having all the climbs at the back should be good.
Good luck.
Cool, thank you.
I like her aggressive style. I like the way that she comes down here, wants to put it out there. Hey, it's almost sort of reminds me of a former men's champion, Gordon McCauley, who'd sit there on the start line, tell you what he was going to do, and then he'd actually go out and do it. And I think Kate's similar. She's there to race. She's there to. She knows what her strengths are.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. It's well, yeah. There's no use saying you're going to do one thing and dream about doing another. She's out there. She's having a good crack at it, and good on her. She did the same thing last year. She made no bones about it. Wore a skin suit, deep section wheels, and had a crack for the long one.
Okay, we're going to head out onto the road and pick up live pictures now of this women's race because it is starting to get down to the business end. This is the front of the race, and I can tell you it was Georgia Williams, Kate McCarthy, who have a significant break, but the challenges are coming. Greg Henderson, you've been across this.
Yeah, it's a very interesting race scenario now. Again, it's definitely race on. As they went through the first lap, it was sort of a bit of cat and mouse. They were looking at how far the break had, how far the peloton had. But now as they've gone lap 2, it's race on. It's literally mano a mano, as they say. It's 2 against 2. We're racing for the title here.
Yeah, and we do have 2 other riders who we haven't yet seen in picture at the moment, but we do have Jamie Nielsen, who is an absolute class, and Charlotte Lucas, and these are the 2 athletes that are trying to bridge up and make it a group of 4.
Yeah, so last we heard it was at 55 seconds, so it has come from 1 minute 20 to 55, so potentially the gap is closing. It all depends whereabouts on the circuit they were, where that time check was taken, so it's not exactly official that they are catching, but it's not a huge time gap, and a lot can be made up, like we talk about that famous French pass.
What are Kate and Georgia talking about? They know that they've committed. There's no plan B here. The national title, they're going to say to themselves, what? It's between the 2 of us?
Well, I think the first thing they're going to say is, let's not let these 2 catch us. And, I mean, you don't hold back anything. At this part of the race here, you don't hold back anything. You have to establish the gap, keep the gap high, and then later on in the race, you might think about maybe some tactics, maybe some soft pedaling, maybe attacking and going solo. You know, you'll get a feel for who's the strongest in the break. So, yeah, it'll come down. At the moment, it's head down and let's go.
Kate McCarthy, what lessons do you think she learnt from last year? And does she have the ability to make the adjustments this year? I mean, she's the type of rider that clearly likes to set the tempo, clearly likes to be on the front.
Well, I think she's learned a lot from last year. She's got one person with her this year. I mean, she went solo last year for so long and was this close to making it. Now she's got one of the favourites, if not the favourite of the race, with her. So yeah, she's definitely taken on board. She realises, I mean, obviously how strong she is. She's got her tactic. She's employed it again, and I'm quite surprised that a few of the other girls weren't actually onto it and go, right, she did it last year and nearly won. Why would you not have a go at it next year? I would have been all over that.
Yeah, we saw Rushlee Buchanan earlier in the day. We didn't have pictures of her, but Rushlee looking to try and bridge across. We understand she is back in the main peloton. She's a 4-time champion. But in November last year, had a pretty serious injury on the track.
Yeah, had a nasty crash actually on the velodrome, and fell like the long side down actually. She fell right down into the pole line and landed on her shoulder. So yeah, did quite a bit of damage, had a bit of time off there. So the rehab was quite long and intensive, but no, she's back on the bike now and really strong at the moment.
Okay, so they're coming back through Cambridge. They'll have one final lap to go, and sitting on the front, looking very, very strong indeed, is in fact Georgia Williams. Kate McCarthy sitting there second wheel at the moment. Through 2 laps, Greg, they would have now had a geographical understanding of what the wind is doing on the course, and surely that is going to play into the tactics of both of these riders if it comes down to those 2 saying, hey, this next left-hand turn's a headwind, I might just be the one that sits back. you come through?
Well, I'm just looking at the pictures now, and if you've taken notice, you'll see that actually Georgia's doing a lot of the work on the front. So I think maybe they might have already established who's the strongest in the break here. And if I wasn't the strongest or the favoured, I would be looking to, use the strong legs in that peloton as much as I can, because there might be the sense of that if I can hang on here, I can potentially get a silver medal. But if you look at the speed difference now as they come through the start-finish lines there, I think there's a bit of trouble there for that chasing group. I'm not certain they're going to finish this one off. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, Jamie Nielsen in that group along with Charlotte Lucas. So they are the two riders that are trying to bridge that gap. They seem to be holding it at the moment, but just you don't seem to be as organised, do they? You just start to see a little bit more sort of body movement. They're not rolling through that smoothly. So, boy, it is game on at the moment. Georgia Williams, we certainly took her opportunity early on. She's pretty much gone clear from within sort of the first 5 to 6K of this race.
Professional athlete, rides in the World Tour in Europe, at this stage of the game with 1 lap to go, you'd be silly not to bet against be against that. That's she's a class act, and as we said, you look at her palmares at the national championships, and she's developing as a rider. So it's going to be a tough ask. You can see the peloton even haven't rolled through the start finish line yet. They've got one more time up French Pass. I mean, it's a lot of time to make up on French Pass, whether they can or not.
French Pass. Is it an opportunity for one to go clear?
Absolutely. That's exactly where they'll have to go. It's still a long way from home, but you can put that person in a lot of trouble. The other place, like I said, would potentially be the backside of Temero. Although it's not very steep, you could also put someone, and then from the top of Temero, it's actually only about 11 kilometres to home. So, yeah, they're your two opportunities to unload your partner.
So grab the drink bottle, get as much food into you as you can, get the old fuel gauge up a little bit, bide your time, bring your heart rate down a little bit, take your chance.
Absolutely, have a crack. There's nothing to lose. You're out there with 2 anyway, so it's not like it's going to be. It's not like it's going to be 4 or 5 chasing you.
So Rushlee Buchanan, this is Group 3 coming through, sitting there in the colours of the Waikato and Olivia Ray. So 2 very good riders, 2 experienced riders, but it's just sort of sense 2 minutes 35 down is the call. Boy, a lot of work to be done. Rushlee Buchanan, we spoke to her before the race. What did you get from Rushlee?
Yeah, she had a very solid game plan. It was, and I guess, but the thing is, there's always a difference between having a game plan and actually being able to execute it, whether or not, the parkour actually suits you perfectly or not. So yeah, as we were speaking to her before the race, she had the right idea. So I mean, yeah, let's have a listen and see what she said.
Target on your back?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't been here for a few years, and I'm specialising in track this year. So, yeah, I mean, this is my 14th time that I've lined up, so probably got a target on my back, but there's definitely some other girls out there today. It's a really good calibre of riders here, and I'm just excited to be lining up again. This is my hometown. The race goes past my driveway. Like, why not?
So you want to make sure you're feeling good when you go past that driveway, huh?
Yeah, hopefully I won't need to turn right and just go home, but it's going to be a good day. I like the course. It's going to be hard, but it's not. I don't think it's too hard for the trekkies to get over those hills, so I guess we'll see.
And the injury, all good?
Yeah, it's taking its time, and there's some things I still can't do, but I can ride on the road, and I've been enjoying riding around in the summer, so we'll see how we go. I'm just excited to race, to be honest.
Cool. Thank you, Rushlee. Appreciate it.
Absolute class act, isn't she? Rushlee Buchanan, she's won this time 4 times, and I was lucky enough to be in Christchurch on a couple of those occasions there. She's just a complete rider. She's got that ability in a sprint. She's got that strength. I guess the thing that's missing in this women's race is maybe just some critical mass, a small field, a quality field, but maybe just not the depth of numbers that perhaps we're going to see in the men's race.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's and that's where the strength discrepancies can be shown out a lot more. That's why you see the small groups go early. That's why you see the small groups stay away. And as we look now, you see the big, strong effort on the front there. It's like the stronger riders have to dominate the race. They have to take the race from the front. Otherwise, they're playing catch-up the whole way. But it was interesting to hear Rush talk there, specialising on track, obviously, with the postponement of the Tokyo Olympics. She's obviously focused again this year with the running of the Tokyo Olympics. So now it's going to be a hard day out there for everyone, but as you can see, we've got 3 groups of 2 and they're all working together. It's basically little teams time trials chasing each other.
So there are the images, just those chase groups now. We will try and bring you those updates, try and bring you those splits from out on the road, but it is, well, at the moment, it's starting to look very much like a two-horse race, but as we said, you can be in bike racing sort of feeling pretty comfortable at 100 kilometres and find yourself sort of sitting in the gutter at 110. So still plenty of opportunity here for those riders. It is a 1 minute gap now, we understand, a 1 minute gap from Jamie Nielsen, Charlotte Lucas to our leaders. And our leaders are Georgia Williams and Kate McCarthy.
I think you'll find when they head up French Pass, it actually becomes like almost a point of natural selection. You might not even have to attack up that climb. It's so hard, it's so steep that if you just put a little bit of pressure down, and if your teammate or your partner that you're riding with isn't as strong as you, you'll actually gap them. So it'll be interesting to see what happens up French Pass there, and we'll look for some updates as we go out the back of Cambridge here. But my guess is that we're going to see almost one-on-one chase group scenario once we head over the top of French Pass.
And just looking at the form of both riders, do you sort of sense there's any fatigue there? I often say don't look at facial expressions, look at the form. Both riders seem to be reasonably well balanced. They're not sort of pedaling in squares.
It's Jamie Nielsen there, and she just looks rock solid, doesn't she? So again, the strength coming through. Again, there's Georgia Williams now as we switch to her, and she's on the front. Her body position looks fine. She's totally in control. Kate on the back also looks fine.
So 1 minute gap between the leaders and the first chase group on the road, and then another group back to the group of Rushlee Buchanan. So a minute separating the three groups of two on the road. Now clearly Rushlee Buchanan, she'd like to make that group bridge up, make two suddenly become four, try and get organised and see if in fact in that last 20 kilometres or so they can bridge that gap, but time is running out.
That's the chance they have, I think. If Rush can get across to Jamie here, so that the third group can get across to the second group, there's your chance. You've got four riders then that could potentially, in the last 20 kilometres, catch these front two. But these front two are actually working really well together. Their speed looks visually faster on the television. I could be wrong, but yeah, I think the only hope now is for the two at the back to form four, and then we might have a team's time trial chasing breakaway of two.
And Georgia Williams, national time trial champion in that. And then again, as we talked about Kate McCarthy, if you haven't seen the race, you can still get it on YouTube from last year. But boy, she came so close to winning that women's road race overall by just going off the front. So we know she's got plenty of strength. So boy, it is going to take a lot of work from Rushlee Buchanan and the likes of the Jamie Nielsens to try and bridge that gap. There is a lot up for grabs here. National road race champion, you get to take your colours to Europe. If you are with a professional road team, they are incorporated into your trade colours. It's very prestigious for a lot of the teams. And so there is a lot to ride for, plus a long illustrious list of names of greats who have worn the jersey before.
As you can see here, Jamie's still on the front, still powering away, not even asking for help from the person behind. So you can see that you know, maybe the legs are just starting to fade. Jamie Nielsen is absolutely on form, you know, and she's just trying to mow down that front group on her own, literally with the passenger sitting on the back.
Yep, and that is bike racing. It can be a cruel affair at times. How often do you see the best rider not win it just simply because of numbers and simply because of the dynamic of the race? And I think at this point, Jamie will just be saying, look, even if you can just come through and give me a little breather for 10, 15 seconds, absolutely, I'm happy with that at this point. You know, we watched in the men's race last year, and we were talking about George Bennett, how he came so close to winning the men's race. And if Michael Torkler, who went with him on the climb, could have just hung there for another 5 or 6K on the flat, it might have been enough to get George. It might have just been enough to give George that little bit more recovery.
And I think that's a mistake that George made. I think I would have waited the 10 seconds for Michael to come back to me, and just, like you said, just use him for 30 seconds every now and then, just to take that little bit of reprieve, because he came so close to winning.
So wonderful dynamics. It is such a strategic sport. So Jamie Nielsen coming back into real form. Last time she was on the podium was back in 2017. She got on the podium on Friday night. So like a lot of athletes, you can sort of be in form and then you go through a little bit of a lull, injuries, a lot of adversity, and it's great to see an athlete come out the other side.
Yeah, she's going really well. It's great to see. You saw the leaders there just heading into a technical downhill section just before you start the French Pass there. And then the real leg burner starts. And like I said, in distance and in time, it's not super long. But at this stage of the bike race, in this heat, you know, you've either got the legs or you haven't. Here they go now as they'll start the first sort of the big lower slopes of the French Pass. It sort of kicks up really steep here. It flattens off for about 500 or 600 metres, and then it kicks again for about 3 kilometres, and that's the real difficult part.
Okay, so chance here now for Georgia Williams. Does she decide that she wants to keep Kate McCarthy with her, or is this her tactic? Is this the opportunity to break, to go solo, put sort of Kate McCarthy in a world of difficulty, or perhaps go the other way? Kate McCarthy say, you know what, I'll sit on your wheel for a little bit, then I'll try and roll over the top of you and see if, in fact, I can get into that break and get away. And if you are one of those riders that does get dropped, I guess you are then hoping for Jamie Nielsen to ride through.
Well, if you're getting dropped from that front group, you're just hoping and praying that you're not getting caught by the next group, because remember, it's a gold medal up the road, but there's still silver and bronze on the table.
And Charlotte Lucas in that group, she was second in gravel and tar, which is a race down sort of in the central North Island, so she's a very, very strong rider as well. And sixth in the time trial on Friday, so she... And so working nicely with Jamie Nielsen, as we said, even if she can just offer Jamie some assistance, then it's got to be in her benefit. So the little flick of the elbow says, you come through, do some work.
Yes, I was actually lucky enough to go down to the gravel and tar a couple of weeks ago, and what a brutal race, actually. Yeah, really hard sections of gravel, and the strongest person won. You know, it was incredible. So if she's finishing second with a puncture, you know, they've got some good legs to get back up for second place.
Yeah, Olivia Ray taking out that women's title down there, and it's amazing, isn't it? The boom that is now gravel bikes and that sort of hybrid form of bike racing now between off-road and on-road, and both riders now looking good, taking plenty of fluid on board. So Kate McCarthy looking for revenge, looking to try and just take that next step up. Came so close last year.
Both look pretty good to me, to be honest. I've just been trying to check out the body form of each of them as they're riding, and they both look quite comfortable. So I'm not thinking anyone's going to lose contact up this climb at the moment. It might be decided really in the final stages of this bike race.
And here is that chase group. Just trying to bridge up that gap. We'll see if we can get that split for you at the moment. So I just want to reinforce that. Charlotte Lucas there, Jamie Nielsen, they're the two riders. Nielsen in white, Lucas in the pink.
Jamie Nielsen just having a look behind there. That's sort of sometimes the indication of, like, have we got two more riders coming to join us? I wonder what the time gap is back to Rush now. Often when you look behind, you've had a little bit of information that maybe there's some people catching, but let's wait and see for that. So again, you know, we've got two up the road, 1 minute back to this group of two now that we're looking back at, and then again another minute was our last communication back to Rushlee Buchanan. So that's a minute between each gap.
Yeah. But we're sort of thinking that, well, if it does become four still needs to be organised. Sometimes your two's actually been working quite well. Four, you know, are there any alliances? Does anyone try and not roll through? Does it get a little bit more confusing? Do you start looking at each other? I mean, you want to have some numbers in the break, but you don't want to have too many, and sometimes you don't want to have too little.
Yeah, I think at this stage of the game, though, you're not going to be playing any silly games, you know. You're riding, you know what's on the cards, because there's only 3 medals, and, you know, there's no use riding all day. You're not out there to finish fourth. It's the worst place on the planet to finish. Okay, we come into the base of the climb now. Let's have a look at them and let's just see how they're riding up there and who looks comfortable. You can see Georgia on the front, so she'll be setting her own tempo at the moment. She'll be quite happy at this pace. She won't be going above her limit.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because some riders do just like to go to the front, like to control things, don't like to be dictated to. They feel like they're in control a little bit. You can also play that game where you sort of make it appear like you're doing it easy, where technically you're sort of in a pretty dark place, and it's a little bit of psychological warfare at this point. Who is feeling good? And this is that chase group. And just trying to get Greg, you know the course, do you sort of get a sense of familiarity there? It is 50 seconds, we understand. 50 seconds, so that gap has come down by 10 seconds.
Yeah, I still wouldn't panic too much yet. Again, like we said, the second group is Jamie is doing a bunch of the work, you know, so that's a long time trial. I mean, we know she's capable of long individual efforts, but that's a long time trial. When you've got the front two that appeared to be on TV working pretty well together.
Yeah, Jamie Nielsen, 3-time New Zealand time trial champion, so she knows how to sort of go for long periods at sort of anaerobic threshold or at threshold, so she knows how to suffer for long periods of time. and also holds the 1 hour record on the track, which is one of the sort of the great international feats of cycling, you could say. So she knows how to sup up.
Just looking, trying to get, oh no, I was just thinking, did I see some salt marks on the back of Kate's jersey there? That's often a sign of fatigue and dehydration, but it might have actually just been a graphic on her. So you can see it there. I think it's just some sponsorship on her jersey. I don't think it's actually visuals of the salt and the heat and the dehydration that happens like this late stage of the game.
Yeah, and we do just apologise for the broken pictures and stuff. And Greg, just going back to the nutrition side of it, in terms of fluid intake, what are we taking? 700? Are we taking a bin or a bottle every hour? Are we taking, or is everyone different? What's the race plan?
Well, it all depends on temperatures, absolutely, and it's really really important to get it correct, because you can make a mess of it both ways. You can take too much or you can take too little. And this, if it's 40 k's, you're looking to be doing about 1.5 litres an hour in these sort of temperatures, you know, and you can mix that between carbohydrate intake or just plain water. Yeah,
and it's a hard thing to do, isn't it? Often, you know, I see a lot of athletes in training being able to get through 1.5 litres or 1 litre of water an hour, but often it's when they're in a bunch in an aerobic state. It's like you've got to learn to do it when you're under duress. You've got to learn to do it when you've got nerves running through the body, when your actually heart rate's incredibly high, taking that fluid on board and having that ability to absorb it under duress.
Yeah, that's the trick, and it's I always say to my athletes is little and often. You know, you don't have to take big gulps every now and then. Just make sure you're constantly part of your race routine. Is, you know, I used to, even in really important races, set a stopwatch every 5 minutes that my stopwatch would beep, have a sip every 5 minutes, so it just takes the guesswork out of it.
But it is a discipline in itself, isn't it? And we understand they are still together, approaching the top of French Pass. Here we are, back live with pictures. So we do have two world-class riders here in Georgia Williams, Kate McCarthy. They've been out on their own for a long time, almost within the first 10k of this race. You just start to sense, though, that maybe Kate McCarthy's just in a little bit of difficulty. We just saw a little bit more upper body movement, and I just wonder whether Georgia Williams is just starting to tighten the screws here. And we've seen one of our chase group riders. We think this is Charlotte Lucas. She's either gone away from Jamie Nielsen, or in fact she's dropped off the wheel of Jamie Nielsen. We will confirm that for you.
Wow, she's actually ridden Jamie off the front.
Okay, so Jamie Nielsen off the front. This is a big, big call, because we said how good she looked, what sort of form is she in. And if anything, we thought at one point there maybe Charlotte Lucas was the rider who was struggling a little bit. Come through, Charlotte, just do a little bit of work for me. But in fact, it's gone the other way. Wonderful ride from Lucas. Great stuff. Now, can she bridge that gap?
I think this is mainly to do with the parkour right now, the very, very steep section. Don't be surprised if you see Jamie Nielsen ride back across that, because it's not a huge gap yet, and it's, like I said, it's not a long climb. So there might be a small time gap across the top, but I think we might see Jamie rejoin that.
Well, coming up to the top here of French Pass, this is just fascinating, isn't it now? Just another little out of the seat, and Georgia Williams just puts another little dig in, just edging, just taking a little bit away. She looks incredible at the moment.
She's totally in control of this race right now. She hasn't even asked one time for some help from behind. She'll need Kate round the back. Round the back's quite undulating. And then, you know, to be honest though, I think if she wants to have a go, she could go solo in the final 11 kilometres of this bike race.
Yeah, just looking at Kate McCarthy there, just a little bit of sort of shoulder movement, moving the head around. She's sort of just weaving in and out. Almost feels that she's sort of searching for gears, and that's always a good sign that when you sort of can't find one gear you're in's too hard, one gear you're in's too easy, that's always a sign of fatigue.
Bear in mind that it is the steepest part of the climb at the moment, you know, so I hate to think what I'd look like going up that climb right now.
And Kate McCarthy, she was fourth in that time trial on Friday, so she's desperate to try and get herself a medal today. Great to see the support here. That's good. Just giving that little bit of a pick-up, that little bit of encouragement. She'll know that she doesn't have long. Every uphill is always going to be generally followed by downhill, unless it's an uphill finish. And that'll just give her a sense of relief. But you're going to have to concentrate on the downhill, aren't you, Greg? This is not just a chance. We spoke about this prior to going to the live pictures. This is not just about saying, well, I've got over the climb, I can recover. There's a hell of a lot of concentration required. And you're going to have to keep the watts up, keep the power meter ticking over, keep working at it.
Yeah, there's a small chance of recovery here now, but again, like I said, round the back, you've got a lot of little kickers that still sting the legs. And you can see Georgia didn't bother attacking up that climb at all. She thought, right, it's too far out from home now to go solo. I'm going to use the help as much as I can for the rest of the circuit. and then, you know, maybe the race will be decided later. Who knows? Maybe it'll come down to a bunch sprint. If I was Georgia Williams, I'd be very confident in taking it in a bunch sprint and taking it to the line. So maybe she's just thinking that, right, I'll use it, I'll be safe. I need some help. 2's stronger than 1 at the moment. Yeah, and I can take this to the line. I'm very confident I can dust it in sprint.
Okay, so Charlotte Lucas, we did have some images there in that chase group. Her and Jamie Nielsen. She left Jamie Nielsen on the steepest part of this particular climb. But as Greg Henderson said, wouldn't be surprised if in fact Jamie jumps back across. She's not necessarily a pure hill climber. And wonderful helicopter pictures now bringing you this beautiful Cambridge region. You are watching the Vantage Elite New Zealand Road Cycling Championships, and that is the lead group you are looking at. Give you an idea of the speeds they are travelling. The descent here, Greg Henderson, you know these roads well.
I'm very good at the downhills, not the uphills so much, mate.
Charlotte, now she had a wee look back here. She probably knows now it's also in the best interest, isn't it? Does she sit up, get on the drink bottle, try and recover a little bit, wait for Jamie to come through, and then start working again?
Not necessarily sit up, but no, that's the right idea. She'll just ride nice and steady, and, you know, still ride time trial pace, which is essentially within yourself, and then if Jamie comes back across, again, it's 2 versus 2. So it's I think it's one of those sort of scenarios right now. She just had a little bit more power to weight ratio up the climb. It's put a gap into Jamie, and like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Jamie come back across. But let's wait and see. We're in the late end of the bike race, and you know what it's like at the last stages of a bike race. The legs in the lungs can say a different story.
Absolutely. Fascinating race beginning to unfold in this women's race. But by the looks of it, we will certainly have a new race champion for 2021. It was only a small field that started, but a quality field. And Greg, let's just talk about that, because we've seen some great depth in women's road cycling now internationally. We're starting to get some critical mass.
Yes, well, it's the noticeable absentees. You know, we've got Neve, Finn Black, Michaela Harvey, you know, also Neve Fisher Black, sorry, and Michaela Harvey. Unfortunately, Ella Harris, she is in Dunedin right now, my hometown, but had an unfortunate training incident, and is back training, which is great to see, but wasn't quite ready for the nationals. So yeah, and these are all, you know, World Tour women as well, along with Georgia. So we definitely are starting to get, as you call it, the critical mass.
Yeah, Michaela Harvey too. She won a breakthrough season last year, 5th in the Giro d'Italia. So, you know, just some wonderful riders. And interesting, when you do look at their bios and their profiles, it's from right around the country as well. It's not one part of New Zealand which is producing champions, which is fantastic. So we've got our 2 riders up in front working nicely together on this descent, trying to just maybe refine their form, or just try and just bring their heart rates down a little bit, and then just focus on this last part of the race. Just give themselves that little bit of a reprieve, get as much fluid and food in, and going, right, at some point, yes, we've worked well together. It is physical at this point. Now it becomes mental, and now it starts to become tactical.
Absolutely, it's going to be, and as we've commented on about now, it's 2 versus 2 versus 2. It's absolutely no holding back now. And I was going to mention before, when you're in a situation like this and you've been away with these people for so long, you do know, you get a feel as a bike rider. We can't see it here watching from television or talking about it, but when you're out there and you are away with someone, you can feel how strong they are, or if they're weaker than you. So these riders will know, okay, I've got a chance. I can actually disappear here. I can take advantage here. So between those 2 riders, they do know exactly who's got the legs right now.
How important for Georgia Williams to take the national jersey back to Europe?
Yeah, it's a fantastic thing to see, because it's so recognisable, that New Zealand Fern in the pro peloton. It would be fantastic for Bike Exchange, which, you know, was Green Edge. Green Edge Bike Exchange did very, very well in the Australian nationals. They won the men's and they won the women's race. So it would be great for Georgia to kick it off here over New Zealand and take that back to Europe.
Looking very, very strong on the front indeed.
Definitely doing a lot of work there. She's not afraid. So I'm wondering if she gets that feeling that, okay, I am the strongest in this breakaway right now, and you know, I'm not gonna mess around and worry about whether or not Kate's doing enough work. It's like, let's not get caught from behind first, and then let's try and sort out the gold medal later on.
So, Kate McCarthy, she's a full-time police officer, and I just had the director's queue in my ear wanting to ask the question, is she actually policing the break at the moment? Is she acting as a policeman in this role? I do have to say, of the 2 riders, certainly, when you look at it, you do have to sense that Georgia Williams, she just appears a lot smoother. She just appears to be just pedaling a little bit cleaner, and they're just subtle little things that you can pick up, though, in regards to that fatigue level. So Jamie Nielsen has not come across, so interesting. So Jamie Nielsen has not come across and bridged the gap back up to Charlotte Lucas. So Lucas is now sitting in third place, and she is on her own, which is a tough place to be. But she has committed now. There is no plan B for her. She just needs to put her head down and hope.
Absolutely, she's riding for bronze, and at this moment of the course here, again, it's not flat again. It's up and down and undulating, quite a few steep ones. So it's really not a flat circuit until later on. But like I said, she's put her head down, and she is now riding for the bronze.
And you also wonder too, out of sight, out of mind, how psychological that is. You'll be getting the calls from commissaires and different people out on the course of what that gap is. But look how beautifully these two are riding. Time trial specialists in their own right. Beautifully set up, nicely positioned.
Yeah, again, I was just trying to get a read on the facial. I think if I was Kate McCarthy right now, I would definitely be using to my advantage that this is a World Tour rider. She's responsible for most of the work right now. So I would be playing that card and even bluffing a little bit, because you know what, I've got nothing to lose if I'm Kate McCarthy right now, and I would be trying to just save as much energy this deep into the race and putting a little bit more pressure on Georgia Williams. That would be my tactic right now.
Charlotte Lucas, and you can see in the background there Jamie Nielsen, so she's certainly not giving up the chase. But I think at this point, what we've seen from Charlotte Lucas is, I wonder whether Charlotte Lucas realises that, look, you know, even if we've got Nielsen here, we're not going to bridge this gap. There is a bronze medal here. I've committed, hey, let's get Jamie to try and chase me. Even if she does catch me, she might burn a lot of matches in doing that. I've still got an opportunity to get myself on that podium.
Yep, here she is now, absolutely. She's fully committed. There is no way that she is waiting for the third place, for Jamie Nielsen to get back across. Again, like I keep mentioning, it's very undulating through here. It's up and down. It's hard to find a rhythm, you know, a time trial rhythm, which Jamie is renowned for. Up, down, left, right. It's very technical. So it's definitely a time where she could actually potentially either hold the gap that she has right now or put in some more time.
Yeah. So within the last 30 kilometres of this 2021 Vantage Elite New Zealand Road Cycling Championship. So this is that period in the race. We talk about the 130 kilometres, 100 kilometres of hope, 30 kilometres of truth. This is where we find out who has been good with their nutrition, who has been good with their hydration, who hasn't pushed that snooze button 10 minutes a day, 70 minutes a week, first into training, last off the bike. This is what it can often come down to. Interesting too, just looking at Charlotte Lucas, she much higher cadence than what we're seeing from the girls on the front. Those girls, more traditional sort of time trialers, probably used to being sort of in a much longer period of sort of steady state or threshold. And then you sort of look back, and there's not necessarily a right or a wrong way, is there, in terms of your cadence and the gear ratios that you are riding. We used to see it with Armstrong and Ulrich, very sort of contrasting styles.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%, but also it could be just purely what part of the course they're on right now. You know, like I mentioned, it's never flat pancake. It's doing this the whole time. So, you know, if you're going uphill, you're going to be doing a lower cadence. So it's quite hard to tell, you know, from the stagnated shots that we're getting, what sort of cadence they are riding. But no, you did right. A lot of people like to pedal. Time trialists typically ride a lower RPM. But yeah, it's as you can see now, Charlotte Lucas has honestly, she's got her head down and is fighting for that bronze medal.
Yeah, second elite last year. 6th overall, so we know her pedigree, we know that she has the experience, she'll have that belief, and like a lot of riders, she'll be wanting today, is this my day? Is this the breakthrough race for me? Is this the day that I introduce myself to the wider cycling community?
Yeah, it looks like she's just actually putting some more time. Like I mentioned, it might be an area where she can actually put in some more time. She's having a sneaky look over her shoulder. Then that gives you an idea there. And she'll be evaluating her effort right now. It'll be like, whether is she catching? Is that gap going out? And I think it's, you can tell right now, it's a really tough part of the course, and she's absolutely committed to riding for that bronze medal now.
Fascinating race. Hope you are enjoying coverage here on Sky Next of this 2021 New Zealand Road Race Championship Elite. This is the women's race. I'll have the men's later to come this afternoon. And boy, what a race that is, with George Bennett up against Black Spoke Racing, 15 riders on 2 if you're taking Finn Fisher Black. So certainly plenty of world-class cycling to look forward to. Greg Henderson alongside of me, bringing you all the coverage. Greg, we were speaking earlier in regards to some of the evolution in terms of the technology, and I want to talk about the width of the bike tyres, because certainly when I was coming through in sports like triathlon and cycling, it was always about getting narrow bike tyres, 19 mil, 22 mil, and now suddenly we've got bike tyres, the widths are up to 25, 26, 27 mil, and reducing the PSI in the tyres, so the tyres that the riders are riding on, a lot softer.
Absolutely, that's the technological development of the race wheel actually. So you'll find that the actually deep section rim has got a lot wider now, so to then match the aerodynamic front of it, they put a wider tyre on. So yeah, our team's riding 27, 28 millimetre tyres, and you know, predominantly it was, oh, let's just chuck 8 or 9 bar, 130 psi in the tyres. Now we're running 80 psi max in those really big bag tyres. So it's a less rolling resistance and a more aerodynamic frontal.
And yet, when you look at wider tyres, you look at softer tyres, it's almost counterintuitive. It's actually hard to believe and buy into the science. Are you kidding me? You're telling me that I'm going to go faster at 80 psi versus 110, 140?
Well, actually, what happens is if you think about a really hard surface against a rocking surface, which is your tar seal or your road, your wheel actually skips across the road, and you lose some transmission and power in watts. And you know, we all measure everything by watts these days. So if you've got a little more forgiving, a little more
a softer ride,
you're actually got traction your whole way through, and your whole pedal stroke is actually gaining traction. You're not micro skipping across the top of a road surface. So yeah, it sounds very, very small, but you know, over the space of 5 or 6 hour bike race, it makes a huge difference.
So Georgia Williams, Kate McCarthy, the two riders out in front of this 2021 Elite National Road Cycling Championship, and they are working nicely together. Both absolute strength-based riders who at what point will one of them say second is good enough today? We thought it might happen up French Pass, but Georgia Williams, you sort of felt it was in her best interest with the likes of Jamie Nielsen, with the likes of Charlotte Lucas chasing, that was in her best interest to make sure that her and Kate had that last 30 kilometres together and worked together, make sure they stayed away, make sure they stayed clear. And this is the very gutsy Charlotte Lucas out on her own. She looks good though. You sort of sense she's in the zone too at the moment. Just beautiful pedalling. Look at that. Just beautiful upright. No head movement whatsoever. And you talked about the rolling terrain and how sometimes that can impact the cadence, but just looking at her, every time we've gone back to her, she's maintaining the same sort of cadence, isn't it? Sort of probably around that 100 revolutions per minute.
Absolutely. Again, it's rolling terrain, so it's really hard to find a rhythm. You know, that one power that you can stick to. When you go up a rise, you have to press a little harder to keep some speed, so it lifts your power. As you go down, you try and accelerate across the top of a climb and take some relief, as she is now, on a little downhill, just to keep your pace. So it's all about speed, not necessarily power, and that's the thing. Some riders like just to stick to a certain number, dial that number in on their power meter, and then just hold that power. Other riders are good at changing their power profiles, undulating terrain. Have a look at that.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, if you think France is beautiful, have a look at Cambridge. Absolutely stunning, reasonably dry at the moment. Beautiful day here. Mercury is rising, which is going to make it tough, particularly for the men's race, which has got underway, and we'll bring you live coverage of that. But boy, I tell you what, it's just a cyclist paradise here in Waipart in Cambridge. And you've moved back into Cambridge, Greg, and we're going to go past your house shortly. I understand you haven't done your lawns.
Yeah, I did intend on getting up this morning and mowing my lawns so they look good for the television, but accidentally didn't get around to it. Yeah,
no, it's the first thing you said to me, mate, don't mention my lawns, we are going to go past my house. And then I turned up and they had a film set and they were filming Jumanji 4 on it. I thought, is that Robin Williams? No, it can't be.
Yeah, well, you know.
You're good at riding a bike, but not much else, eh?
Oh, you got me speechless there, buddy. You got me.
There you go. No, it is the backside of Turkey Hill. So if you know the area well, Greg Henderson can talk probably a little bit more about the profile on this part of the course. Wind-wise, well, what can you traditionally expect there? We're still seeing the riders sort of directly behind each other, because it doesn't appear to be a lot of crosswind at any point.
No, I don't think it opens up really until you come back down the flats out here into town. So, yeah, there might be a predominant wind, you know, whether it's a head or a tail, but there's going to be nothing. It's not high speed enough to actually force a crosswind or anything like that. You know, if there's a crosswind, there you can put your and it's a really fast section, there you can put the person you're with in some trouble. But right now, it's a really hard section of the race right here.
So we just saw a brief shot there of Charlotte Lucas, and now we're just going back up to the front of the peloton, or up to the front of the bike race again, and they'll get to know each other pretty well because they've been out in front for really most of this race, Georgia Williams and Kate McCarthy. Somewhat surprised too that Rushlee Buchanan and a few of the riders just didn't jump. I mean, when you see these two quality riders going, we saw what Kate McCarthy can do, and then you got your race favourite in Georgia Williams. What are you thinking?
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, it's one of those situations sometimes. Like I used to know when Sagan was going to go, but I just couldn't go with him. You know, it's not like I had a choice. So it could be the same sort of situation. You know what's going to happen, but your legs. If you don't have the legs, you don't have the legs.
No, it's funny. I always talk to a lot of former All Blacks when I was back in the radio days, and they'd always talk about Christian Cullen, and they said you knew it was coming, but you still didn't know how to stop it.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely. It's the same thing. You know when they're going to attack. Like if you had the legs, that's where you would go to. But sometimes, you know, whether you know it or not, it's if you've got the legs to go with it.
Gutsy ride here from Lucas, so she's not giving up at all out of that seat, maintaining that power. And we talk a lot, Greg, too, now that bikes are set up with what we call wattage meters or power meters. So rather than looking at average speed, you look at how much power you were putting through the cranks, through the bike, and they try and maintain a certain power, you know, a certain level of watts throughout the entire ride. Hardest thing is to keep it up on the downhill.
Yeah, exactly. But again, like I mentioned just before, it's more important in these undulating terrains is speed. So maybe not look so much onto your power meter. You have to more concentrate on just keeping a high average speed. So again, pushing it a little bit more on the uphill, maybe relaxing a little bit on the downhill, but make sure you're keeping that average speed high.
Yeah, highest part of the course that you are seeing from our helicopter. You see the commissaires' vehicles, the team vehicles. If they are going to attack, opportunity perhaps, Greg, to attack each other on the downhill section.
Yeah, I don't know. I just, like I said, I think at this stage of the game, you're going to know who's the strongest right now. And if I was in Georgia's situation here, I would just be biding my time. It's like, you know what? I think I've got this under control. If I want to go solo, I'll have a crack later because it's still a long way to go on those flat plains as we head into town. Plenty of time to distance someone yet. And it's still a long way out. We're still 20 Ks to go. It's a long way to ride solo.
Let's talk about the tactics of Kate McCarthy because she's a full-time woman police officer. She came close last year. She clearly is a rider who just likes to ride in long periods at a steady state, maybe not a rider who necessarily enjoys a constant change of speed that you might get in a criterium and a more technical bike course. She probably looks at Georgia Williams and says, world-class rider in front of me, she's complete. So what's going through her head? If she's determined to try and win this, what tactics does she have available to her based on her plumbing, based on the way she rides a bike?
Yeah, well, I think, you know, we did touch on it previously, and I think maybe you can play a little bit of possum. You know, maybe you can, if you've got some legs, just put the pressure a little bit back on Georgia and go, you know what, you want to take the jersey to Europe. You're the one that's got more to lose than I have right now. Let's you do the predominant of the work, and then if she has got some legs, absolutely. I wouldn't go up against Georgia in the sprint. I would definitely try and attack it. But again, we're talking if she's got the legs, and that's a big if.
Well, she had the legs for most of it last year. This is a tougher course, though. Mind you, she's been sharing a lot more of the work this year with with Georgia, where last year she went solo for a long time. Going back in that field, you know, a number of riders, again, that come with the big reputations, but we haven't seen them all day because they're stuck back in the peloton. Boy, it's you just sort of, it's another 12 months and you've got to sort of think about the if-only moments again. And you've got to admire the riders that did go off the front. If you want to win this race, you've got to take your opportunities.
No, you're definitely right. It's and with the smaller field, like we've mentioned, with the smaller field, you have to race these races from the front. You have to be able to you take the race on right from the beginning, because what essentially happens by the end of the race, the breakaways become stronger than what's left in the peloton, and that's exactly what Georgia's done today. Lap 1, she went up the French Pass and hasn't looked back. You could see when the first time they come past the start-finish line, yes, they were just cruising, they were riding a nice tempo, but so was the bunch, so there was no need to go flat stick. Then when they heard second time up French Pass, they heard that the peloton was really reacting. That's when they put the hammer down, and then it became a race. It became a time trial against, but Georgia already had a minute and a half, 2-minute gap then, and then they all of a sudden, the favourites from the peloton then have to try and bridge a 2-minute gap. It's a big ask.
Yeah, she was the favourite coming into this, and she is owning it. I know that, and I brought up guys like Gordon McCauley, who, you know, rubbed a lot of cyclists the wrong way because of his strong personality, but I admired him because he said, hey, this is what I'm going to do, I'm going to go out and do it. And very rarely do you see that from a lot of athletes. I mean, you know, people can say, oh, that's a little bit arrogant, but hey, if you can talk the talk and walk the walk, good luck to you. And, you know, Williams the favourite coming in, and she's showing why.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, she's showing her class here.
Do you like Gordon McCauley?
Yeah, good mate with Gordy. I ride with him.
Oh, I like him a lot.
Yeah, I ride with him every Thursday night actually on Zwift on the Kiwi Crew ride. So he's always good value.
Yeah.
We chuck a bit of banter back and forth. So it's, Oh, well, so Kate was a Zwift finalist in the Zwift Academy in 2019.
Explain
actually.
how that works, Greg, for
So-
people out there that not. Firstly, just let everyone know, because it's very easy to fall into the thing that you're talking to pure cycling aficionados.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about Zwift and then just sort of break that down for us.
Correct. So Zwift is an online platform, an online cycling platform, and you ride in the virtual world. And the Zwift Cycling Academy is open to anyone in the world, and it's the winner of it gets themselves a professional contract.
Fisher Black.
Ella Harris, for example. Ella Harris won in 2019, and she took a professional contract from that. It's been going for 5 years. Ollie Jones won the men's one.
Was it? Yeah.
So you've had, you've had now two New Zealanders with a pro contract and a couple of Australians. But the numbers are horrendous. Like, they're just amazing. You can get 30, 40,000 people entering, and you have to complete certain workouts, and they analyse your data, and then they take the finalists. So you've got to have some very, very seriously strong numbers to make a final in the Zwift Academy.
Where are you ranked?
Look, I prefer to be one of the coaches, so I write the programs and then go, oh, gee, I'm glad I'm not doing that one.
Yeah, and it's amazing how you can connect the world now, and you can look at the numbers on that, and so the technology is just incredible in terms of what you can do with cycling racing people, and choose these courses from all around the world, and go and do some of the famous climbs and join in from people around the world, and set whether you want to be A grade, B grade, C grade based on your level, and just have this global community. And if you think you're good, well, you sort of get a pretty good read on where you are. Back to the front of this leaders of this women's race, and at the moment still looking comfortable. You look at Georgia Williams there, just taking on board some more food, just making sure that she does have that fuel gauge on, facing full rather than facing empty, because it is a sport where if you start to get hungry, it's almost too late. And I reckon of all the sports I've experienced, endurance sports over the years, when you pop on a bike, it has got to be the worst feeling in the world.
Yeah, there's not a lot you can do if you go hypoglycemic in a bike race. I mean, there is, you're going to lose contact with whatever group you're with at that moment in time. There is a chance of coming back, obviously, high doses of sugar, but it's very short-lived, unfortunately. So it's just a sign of improper nutrition and maintenance throughout the race. But I mean, everyone's going to know today it's heat. The major objective is trying to keep that core temperature low. So you're going to be taking on the coldest drinks you can get your hands on. Ice socks over the top of the feed station, things like that can help you.
Yeah, and what about sodium intake? I mean, some of the drinks, some of sponsors' products, particularly these days, tend to be more sugary drinks than sodium-based drinks. The sodium-specific sort of products that you carry too. I mean, clearly some of the gels have caffeine and stuff, which can give you a pick-up in the last 20 to 30k.
Yeah, that's. But I think most of the good sports drinks now have the correct amount of sodium, potassium, all your essential minerals that are in the same sort of concentration in which your blood is going to be in. So you don't want to overload with sodium. You just want to replace, and that's, I think, the key. Is a lot of athletes can make the mistake is they want to overload in some things. When the key is actually just replacing what you've lost.
On the Pro Tour, how much work is done in that area? How much concentration is actually said, hey, Greg, you need to be smarter nutrition-wise. Greg, for you need to be having more or less, and Greg, you need to make this more habit.
Yeah, that's 100%. So this year with our team, we've hired two of the best nutritionalists in the world, simply for that fact, because you would think that professional riders have got it perfect, they've got it 100%, but there's still these simple mistakes that people make. So we've got two of the best nutritionists in the world working for our team this year, and that's the simple thing: when to take on fuel. And the other thing is, what fuel do you take on? Do you take on carbs now? How much do you take on? Again, it's how much quantity, how much can your stomach digest, and how much can it absorb.
And so we've got around 22 kilometres to go. It is still our two race leaders. And back on the front, Kate McCarthy, Georgia Williams sitting second wheel. Both look like they're pedaling still beautifully. Must have a little bit of a tailwind here, Greg Henderson, or slightly on the downhill.
Yeah, they're going for it, aren't they?
Going for it, all right. In the very fast part of the course, tucked down in as aero position as they can get, based on the setup of their road bikes, of course.
Some nice hay bales there. You'll see nicely Here we go.
Yeah, interesting. I think
This
we
might be Charlotte Lucas, is it?
Charlotte Lucas on a road, Cutsy ride. Well, that's a good ride. So she's around about a minute back, but she's certainly not losing anything at the moment. And she'll now get the benefit of this part of the course. Unfortunately, she's got two riders who are, absolute weapons when it comes to the time trialing side of it, and probably athletes who, from what I'm looking at, look like they're probably more comfortable pushing a slightly lower cadence or a bigger gear.
Yeah, we'll see what happens later on now. That you can see their head down. This is a fast part of the circuit. Look at the speed of the background. You know, they're really going for it.
So a little bit more communication. What are they saying to each other?
My legs hurt.
Help!
No, it's just it'll be just some encouragement. If George is feeling great, she'll just be getting, come on, we're going well, you know, things like that. You just keep talking to them, you just keep talking to each other. We're doing great, things like that. It's all about encouragement. This part of the race, especially in George's situation where she might be like, I need as much help now right until the final. Let's just keep it on. And you can see like she's doing big long turns on the front. She's in that big gear, just driving it along. Look at this horizontal position of her back there. She's so aerodynamic there. Her frontal surface is super narrow.
I was going to say that she's on the front, so clearly she wants to be as aero as she can. We're sitting on the back there. Clearly Kate McCarthy, she is getting that drag coefficient, so she can probably afford to be just a little bit more relaxed. Doesn't need to be quite as aerodynamic, but it's great when you can see, you know, you often see it that All Blacks talk about the front row props and how when they go into a scrum, their backs are almost like a table surface, and we're seeing that, but that's not an easy thing to do when you're also trying to search for comfort in a race that's 130 kilometres long. It's easy to try and get into the perfect aero position when you may be on the track and you've only got to do it for 6, 7 minutes or 3 minutes or 4 minutes. 45 seconds, we understand. Back to Lucas. So Lucas, what a bike ride from her at the moment. She is in fact taking time out of these two. Remarkable.
That's a fantastic ride again over that really lumpy surface, over that undulating terrain. She has really put her head down and just gone for it. The two up the front, you know, they're just riding within themselves still because they're still thinking, righto, we're safe from behind. There's only one chasing us, but I don't think they would have banked on losing 15 seconds to Charlotte Lucas solo. So if they get that information, maybe that's why they were having that conversation actually, you know, in our last shot, they were having something to talk to each other. Maybe that's a part of the conversation is, hey, come on, we need to ride still because she just took 15 seconds out of us. Let's get going.
Okay, if you have just joined us too, Charlotte Lucas, let's just have a look at a little bit of her resume. We did mention this earlier, but 6th in the Time Trial Championship on Friday night, 2nd at the Gravel and Tar. That's after she punctured, so she probably, you know, arguably could have won that race. She was 6th in the 2019 New Zealand road race, 2nd to lead across the line. She's 1st at the Oceania Champs in the road race, so she comes in here with plenty of quality. She's also been 3rd in 2019 in New Zealand Criterium Champs, which suggests to me too she is the complete rider.
Yeah, she's absolutely got a long palmares there. She won the Taupo Crit Series and the Quarter Stewart Race Series. She was 4th in the road race at the Commonwealth Games in the Gold Coast. So this is a talented bike rider. She is absolutely head down. Look at her now. She's getting as aerodynamic as possible. She's trying to close that frontal area. And all she's thinking about now, I don't even think she's worrying about 4th place now. She's just going, can I get across? Can I bridge that 45-second gap across to our leading two?
And the advantage that she has at some point, we've seen how well though, Greg, haven't we, that Georgia Williams and Kate McCarthy are working together. But at some point when they start thinking about working against each other in the name of taking the title, that opens the door, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's a couple of attacks that might just hurt the legs.
So we're in the final 20k of the women's road race. We do just apologise. We just had the men's peloton going through to complete their first lap. We'll bring you live coverage of that race, the later parts of that race, a little bit later on. But back to the front of the leaders, 20 kilometres to go. And now I've got to say, the backside of Tamero, and you've got to say Kate McCarthy looking very good indeed. And look at the urgency now coming in here. She doesn't look, she's clearly not as well set up in terms of the aerodynamic side. She doesn't look as smooth as Georgia Williams. But again, it's individual based on your body type and what feels good for you. You want to feel like you're getting over the top of your pedals. You just see her there, just that form's maybe not quite as smooth as we've seen from Georgia Williams, second wheel here at the moment, out of the seat. So I just wonder whether the fatigue is just starting to kick in just a little bit here for Kate McCarthy.
Absolutely, you can see Georgia here. It just looks as cool as a cucumber sitting on second wheel there. Kate McCarthy is riding super hard now. She's actually on her limit right now, if I was to guess by looking at her face. Georgia is as comfortable as anything. Who knows, part of their conversation could be, righto, let's keep it together, let's keep riding, and let's absolutely dominate this race, and let's sort the medals out later on. But in my opinion right now.
So I can tell you now, the gap is now down to 40 seconds. 40 seconds now between Charlotte Lucas and our 2 leaders in Georgia Williams and Kate McCarthy. So this girl here has got a wee sniff. She is very much in the zone.
This is a heroic ride. She's just bridged another 20 seconds across that gap. That's I wouldn't have predicted that, but that's really, really impressive riding now. She's going to crest up here at the top. They'll get their final feed inside the final, like we said, inside the final 20k. But when you crest Tamira, the top of the Tamira, it's only 11, 12k's to the finish line, I believe. Sorry, 17k's was for the junior boys. It was 11k's to the final. It's 17 kilometres, so there's still a little way to go. So yeah, absolutely, it's a long way to go solo, but holy smoke, she's doing a great ride.
And as we mentioned, you know, you've only got to have the wheels fall off one of the 2 leaders or Kate McCarthy, and suddenly that just puts a little bit of doubt into the head of the other rider, and in those moments of hesitation, you suddenly drop another 5 seconds. Then you've got to be thinking still about the nutrition, the hydration side of it, staying fueled, thinking about your form, and here are our 2 race leaders. Still approaching the top of Tamiro, so that's why it doesn't appear that you've seen the same sort of velocity from what you've seen from young Charlotte Lucas, but that is simply because they're still on a climb.
They're sharing the workload, which is still interesting to see. So they're obviously both feeling well enough to take the front and share that load. Again, the message will be coming through that, you know, they're losing 5 seconds here, 5 seconds there. It's down to 40 seconds. That's a bridgeable gap, 40 seconds, by the way. Don't think that they're out of it now. 40 seconds is a gap that can be...
Look at that cadence. So look how smooth she is. She's just riding beautifully, isn't she?
If you go beyond that minute, that's when you start to think, okay, beyond the minute, probably a little bit out of reach. But when you're within 40 seconds, that's a bridgeable gap.
Just a little bit of a shaker there from Georgia Williams. I think she's pretty relaxed by the looks of it still. I think she looks pretty comfortable. She's just, loosening up a little bit, just setting herself for this last part of the race, because it is about concentration now. It is about communication. You lose concentration, you're going to lose time here. When fatigue levels kick in, it's not always the easiest thing to do.
I think any more relaxed and Georgia would fall asleep at the moment. She's in great position here. You just get the vision, you know, when you look at her, everything is under control right now. She's not even worried about what's coming behind. It's like full focus forward and everything I can do now. Here they go now. She takes the last drink. She'll throw that bottle off and she'll grab one from her feet there. See, she's purely professional.
Yeah, dropped her bottle there too for Kate McCarthy. So that is trouble, because if she's feeling just a little bit, still got a little bit left in that. Still got a little bit left in that particular bottle, but they're just the little errors we talk about. We don't know what her energy levels are like. We don't know how important that last bottle was for her. Is she a little bit dehydrated? All of these questions, she's the only one that will know.
That's really interesting, because one of the conversations I have with my lads over the feed in this temperature, I said slow down and do not miss the feed. You saw Georgia slow down through her feed. That's the consummate professional. She knew to slow down. It's better to lose 5 or 6 bike lengths, slow down 5 or 6 kilometres an hour, and make sure you get your feed. I've had feeds in the World Tour that I've missed. I've needed it so badly, I've turned around and gone to get it because I knew how important the final feed was. So you can see the difference there. Georgia slowed right down, made sure she got her feed, and unfortunately Kate has missed her final feed. Still 17 k's out, you know, that's a good 20-30 minutes.
So Charlotte's over Tamiro too. We will get that split for you.
It's not huge, is it? Like,
no, it's not.
It's very fast down here now too, and you saw Georgia on the back just having a stretch, and she'll be taking on her final fluids now. And
if this gap keeps coming down, at what point though does Georgia jump? At what point does she just say, you know what, we're not maybe working as well together, I can probably do this better on my own?
I think I would be starting to get nervous with inside 20 seconds. 20 seconds you can see, 20 seconds is just down the end of the road. So when you look over your shoulder and you see, that's when I would probably start to have to think about going solo again. Now, within that 17, 15k to go range, at the bottom of Tamira here, you're within time trial range, you know. So there's only 12k once they're on Aspen, you know, and that's really, really doable on your own, and it's a really safe distance too. So even if you get caught again, you've not been out there for 2.5 hours solo, you've been out there and you're as tired. And what you have to remember now at the stage of the race, everyone is as tired as everyone else. You know, there's no fresh legs. No one's coming from a big peloton, has been resting and looking after themselves all day and coming across fresh. No one's fresh here right now. Everyone has the same legs.
And so it becomes mental at this point, doesn't it? It's about mental fortitude. They're in a, we've talked about so long, it's physical. It becomes mental too. It's about who's prepared to stay in the hurt box for the longest period of time. At what point does one of the athletes say second is good enough, third is good enough today? The pressure, though, being put on by this remarkable rider in Charlotte Lucas, really, really asking some questions of our two leaders who have been out in the front of this race for a long, long time. So in terms of matches burnt early, in terms of energy levels early, perhaps Charlotte Lucas, in terms of her energy levels, they might be slightly higher.
Yeah, it's tough to say, and like you said, only they will know. But she's just full committed at the moment. You can see maybe the front two, they're riding again. They're riding hard, but they're riding within themselves. Here, you've got just someone absolutely going for it. She's got nothing to lose right now. She has to hold off fourth place, and if she can, catch the two in front. So right now, this is 100% time trial mode. From here, she's just going to gauge her effort so that by the time she gets to the finish line, she's got nothing left in the legs.
What sort of speeds, Greg? Are they descending?
Yeah, that's a fast path. You know, that's 60. It's not super steep, but it's not technical. So you do pick up some nice speed down there. You know, 60 km/h plus. But it's not a really dangerous descent or anything like that, and it's not super steep.
Yeah, what sort of gear ratio? I mean, traditionally most bikes are set up for, I guess, 53 teeth on the front chainring, just for non-cycling aficionados. Smallest little chain at the back is an 11, so at 53.11 would they be riding? Would the girls be pushing anything bigger than 53 on the front?
No, absolutely not. That's as big as they need for sure. The speeds they go, it's 53.11's a big gear. So if they're pushing that downhill, you know they're typically doing 60 km/h plus.
Yeah. And just on that, in terms of crank length too, there's so much science in the bikes these days. Crank lengths, and we're only talking a millimetre here, 5 millimetres, 2.5 millimetres, but that can make a big difference too.
Yeah, that's all changed now, that technology too. So it used to swing from the longer cranks, thinking you get more leverage, more torque, but now it's again gone the absolute opposite way because everything is aero these days. So most of the team riders are now riding 160, 165 millimetre cranks. So again, that shortens the
versus what used to be 170, 175.
Yeah. So it doesn't sound much, but again, it's just that smaller surface area of a pedal stroke that makes you more aerodynamic.
So wonderful race, 2021 Vantage New Zealand Elite Road Cycling Nationals, where you have 3 riders trying to take the black jersey to their professional trade teams or to domestic races here in New Zealand, if in fact you are Kate McCarthy. Georgia Williams, Kate McCarthy are around about 40 seconds clear. That was the last update on Charlotte Lucas, but Lucas is fighting. Lucas is in the zone. She's got pedigree, she's got class, she's the complete bike rider. Will 2 riders suddenly become 3, or will she run out of road? Last of the big hills. Little kickers, these will just hurt. Require just a couple of little changes of gear.
Yeah, these aren't too bad. Like if you were to ride them fresh, absolutely, it's no problem at all. But at this stage of the race, you can definitely feel these things in the legs. It's a bit like Milan San Remo. If you were to ride the Podium and the Suppressor, and you went and rode them fresh just from today, absolutely not even a major climb. But you ride them at the end of 300 kilometres, they feel like
You're feeling climb Mount Everest.
Exactly.
Yeah. But we just look here, you just immediately notice just how much the pace has dropped off. So it gives you an idea of just how niggly they are. Yes, they're not pure power climbs. They are fatigued. They are going to hurt. It's going to be using slightly different gear ratios. And this is where I always say to riders, do a lot of work being efficient out of your seat. Have the ability to ride out of your seat for long periods of time so that you can change that muscle group up. You have that opportunity just to change things a little bit, save some energy, or just when you sit back down on the seat, you just suddenly feel like you've found a bit more energy.
Still riding well together though, it's good to see. Georgia hasn't overcommitted, she's not overly confident with her form, with her condition right now. As we say that now, she takes the lead. She has a look back. Is she having a go? Here we go. We've got some tired legs. This might be
asking a little bit of a bungee cord, just starting to stretch, but no, it's just been a slight adjustment there in terms of possibly cramp, just having a wee stretch, whatever.
Definitely got Kate in some trouble now, but again, like I said, when 2 riders are riding like this for such a long time together, you get a really good indication of how strong someone is.
But also too, at what point, as I said, does it actually become detrimental to have Kate there if in fact you do have the legs, because you've got a young girl who is chasing, who desperately wants this, who's got a CV tendency that says, hey, perhaps it's my time today. So at what point does Georgia Williams say, you know what, I'm going to have to go on my own? Is it 30 seconds? As you said, is 20 seconds too late?
Oh, I can see some.
Yeah, just have a look at the form too of the riders, and you can just start to see them just lose a little bit with their pedal motion. It moves from being sort of circular to more sort of maybe slightly square at times. They're not pulling up on the pedals as much. Or as someone once said, you're sort of riding with duck feet almost.
There's a chance here in this race now, this late stage of this race, that Kate could be really, really fatigued, and that's when you could have a talk to Georgia and say, Georgia, you know what? I am absolutely happy with a silver medal today because I am completely spent. I've been out the front of the bike race all day. Georgia, I am not going to beat you today if you can help me maintain this and get a silver medal. And that could be part of the communication there. Just from the small images that we saw there, I thought I saw cramp. I could be wrong. It's hard to judge from the monitor that we're looking at right now. But I thought I saw her trying to get rid of some cramp in her quad. So there's all these things that go through. And this late stage of the race, you just don't know how the riders are feeling. You can get a better indication if you're on the motorbike or in the follow car. You can get a better indication who's pulling stronger turns, and you can get a better read. And then obviously, again, you get the best read when you're in that break with that person. So they'll absolutely, by this stage of the race, they'll know who is the strongest in this stage of the race.
So wonderful shots coming from our helicopter. And don't go away, because later on this afternoon we will bring you the latest stages of the men's road race featuring the great George Bennett. And let's just talk about Georgia Williams. She's racing overseas, professional all year. The endurance side that she would have developed, will that be helping her in the late stages?
100%. Like she's, you know, she probably races this distance 50, 60 times a year, whereas, you know, Kate probably might only race this at nationals this distance. So yeah, absolutely, and been doing it for years too, Georgia. You know, it's so you build up those endurance legs, those old muscly legs. When I say old, she's not old like I am, but by any stretch of the imagination. But I mean, if you've got 4 or 5 seasons in your legs, you know, you become what they call very, very seasoned.
We're about to get onto a stretch road by the looks of it. We're opportunity here to have a look down the road, and I wonder whether, if in fact Charlotte Lucas, you know, uses a stretch road like this, if she can get a wee sniff, if she can suddenly get sight of the 2 riders, and just what sort of pickup that might give her. A little way behind though, a little way behind. So some urgency really now coming from Georgia Williams and Kate McCarthy. And look at that, still rolling nicely through. Paired both to share the workload.
Into the final stages now. It's we're not far to go now till we're going to name the Advantage Elite National Champion. And I don't like to put you on the spot here, mate, but who's your pick?
I've got to go with Georgia Williams. I think she's just probably the more complete bike rider. I think she looks the most comfortable of them. I think Kate McCarthy is more of a, I think she'd be very good in a 100k time trial type rider. But, you know, Georgia Williams at the same time comes with a reputation, though, doesn't she? So she's got, actually, if you've already alluded to, she's got so much more to lose. So maybe, you know, psychologically, that weight of expectation, that pressure, does that affect her?
Yeah, I know. It's a tough one. And, yeah, after last year, I'd love to see Kate win it. But, again, I'm torn. I'd love to see the New Zealand jersey in Europe. So
I think if Kate McCarthy's to win this, at some point, and we just had an update too that gap is now starting to open back to Charlotte Lucas. It's now 54 seconds. It was down to 40 at one point. So I just wonder whether, these two have just got themselves together and really starting to work a bit harder, or whether or not Charlotte might just now be starting to feel that fatigue. But I mean, if you are Kate McCarthy, surely you're going to have to just peel across one side of the road at 4 or 5k out and go for it, aren't you?
Again, if you've got the legs, mate. Like I said, she could be in a situation right now where it's like, I am absolutely happy with the silver medal. I've got nothing. Don't leave me here so that Charlotte Lucas can catch me. But the gap's going out. It's I think we're looking here at first and second. I don't think there's any doubt in our mind with that. It's now comes down to basically, in my opinion, Georgia not making mistakes. She's not to win the race, but not to lose the race. Don't make a mistake. Don't mess it up. This is yours to lose.
We're in the last 10k of the race, and just looking at the CV of Georgia Williams. So as we've mentioned, 2021 New Zealand time trial champion, third in the road race in 2019. She won the road race in 2018. She's been a silver medalist at the Commonwealth Games on the Gold Coast, fifth in the Herald Sun Tour. Her CV is as impressive as anyone's. And so she certainly has the pedigree. This is her full-time profession. We're in the situation that we've got with Kate McCarthy. As we mentioned, she is a full-time policewoman. So you'd think that the full-time professional bike rider should have the edge here, but this is bike racing, and it often just comes down to the fuel gauge.
What a fantastic ride! It's great to see, and Georgia Williams, like you said, such a you know, long palmarès, you know. You did right. If Kate wants to have a crack, she's going to have a go solo. You know, you don't want to go to the line with Georgia because Georgia's relatively fast in these, especially in these smaller, reduced situations. She's not what you would call a bunch sprinter, but by no means she's won stages from reduced pelotons. You know, fields of 10, 12. So she knows how to put the power down. She's actually got a really nice turn of speed. So yeah, if you're Kate McCarthy right now, you're going to pick a chance. You're going to have a crack because you've got absolutely nothing to lose right now.
Yeah, and Georgia normally domestic for the number of the professional teams and trade teams she rides for, so it's her opportunity to stand up here and shine and take the limelight. Greg, this is the third lap for them, so they've done 2 laps. They'll understand perhaps what the wind is doing in this last 10K. If they're smart, they would have taken some notes. Well, there's a little bit of a crosswind here, a little bit of a headwind. It's going to get stronger as the day goes on. Are they thinking about that opportunity? Does that come into the tactics? In the case of what we're seeing from Kate McCarthy, is she saying to herself, well, there's going to be a little bit of a headwind here. Maybe that's when I jump.
Yeah, if she's into the headwind. No, maybe not into a headwind.
No, but take it saying, hey, I'm happy to go into the headwind. I'm happy to surprise you and go, I'm going to hit you hard in the, you know.
But typically where you would, if you were going to attack in that situation, you would attack in a crosswind situation that's going to turn into a tailwind. And like you said, they've reconned the course now. They've done 3 laps. They know exactly where the crosswind is and where it turns. So you might get a little gap in the crosswind, and when that turns into tailwind, that gap instantly doubles.
Yep.
So that would be the opportunity. You wouldn't attack into a headwind because you've got to give
No, I know you wouldn't, but if that was the only opportunity where you're thinking, hey, I'm not the experienced rider here, I've got an opportunity, I've got to change the game here, I'm just going to launch. Yes, might not be what you traditionally do, but I've got to do something different to win. Does she launch on Swain Road, the overpass?
Yeah, she's got to try it somewhere. Absolutely, we're not far from home now, and like we've mentioned, I wouldn't want to go to the line without having had a crack. You know, like you don't want to come to the finish line here without having a crack at Georgia Williams. So there's going to be a time. She knows these roads. She'll know where to go. There is a little overpass about 3 Ks from the line. Maybe that's a good chance to have a go. But yeah, predominantly if you're in a crosswind, hit them in the crosswind that turns into a tailwind and try and use the environmental factors to increase your advantage.
So hopefully people at home taking note of that. You know, if it is a multi-lap course, do a bit of an environmental scan on the first couple, find out where things are happening, and then start to visualise while you're sitting back, or any point that you get a chance to where you might just get a bit of clarity to start thinking, how can I use this to my advantage to try and get a gap, to try and beat my fellow competitors. And it is also so many things going on in the sport, so many little subtleties that can come into play here. We saw it last year in that men's race particularly. By the time they got into the afternoon, we came through Cambridge a number of times. There was a lot of left-hand, right-hand turns. 1 minute was a crosswind, next minute was a tailwind. Yeah, we're not too far on the outskirts of Cambridge, so we're not too far away from crowning a 2021 Women's Elite Cycling Road Champion. 5 kilometres to go. And I think it's fair to say the 2 riders that have pretty much been away from at the start of this race will battle it out for that coveted national road racing jersey. Georgia Williams, Kate McCarthy, they are the 2 riders.
So if I'm Georgia right now, I'm just thinking, right, I take 100% care of Kate in front of me. Don't let her surprise attack me. And then my next thing, I scan to the finish. Righto, what direction was the wind going for that sprint? Was it a headwind sprint? If it is, I don't open too early and give too much shelter. Was it a crosswind? What side was it coming from? If it's a crosswind, you sprint down the opposite side of the road, so you're not giving any shelter. Again, do not make the mistake that could give away this crown right now. Keep an eye on your competitor. and then make sure you execute.
But at the same time too, Greg, as you've already mentioned too, it's easy when you're fresh, it's easy when you're feeling good, but if you're a little bit fatigued, just to get that clarity, to get that thought process, to actually be able to go and execute it.
Inside 5 kilometres to go now. I think now's the time, if any, we're going to see an attack from, and obviously she's not going to do it from the front. Kate will take some rest on the back, and she's going to have one last crack at her.
You sort of sense already the game of cat and mouse is beginning to play. Certainly a little bit of urgency has come out. They're not rolling through quite as quickly, quite as efficiently. So he just starts to now become tactical. At some point they'll just shake hands and go, right, no love lost, let's go.
You did right, and I think they probably said that a while ago. You know, they said, right, you know what, we've done a brilliant ride today. Let's just hammer it to the line and sort it out in the final stages. And we're in the final stages now, and let's see what happens.
And nothing but respect.
Absolutely. The two strongest girls in the race, they took it from lap 1, and they've held it all the way to the finish line. This is a fantastic ride, and you're going to have a very, very deserving winner. That's the best thing about this road course is there's no gimmies, there's no flukes, there's no gifts. This was the best rider wins today.
So she came in as the favourite, Georgia Williams, and she's living up to that billing. And Kate McCarthy, who just loves this part of the country, one of the most underrated riders, but just an absolute workhorse. And wouldn't she just be an asset to any professional trade team with this ability to just go to the front, just be able to keep this incredible power up and just, you know, basically bury herself. 4 kilometres to go. Onto Swain Road.
So this is this little overpass that we talked about a couple hundred metres up here. You get over a little overbridge over the motorway. So maybe there's a chance here for an attack. Let's just see what happens. Or it might just come down to a calculated bunchment. Again, it looks to me, as I'm sitting here in the commentary booth with you, it looks to me like it might be a slightly headwind sprint. So that means I wouldn't want to open the sprint too early. And if, you know, ultimately, if I had the chance, I'd like to come from second wheel and take a run at the wheel, get some slipstream as you run in towards the wheel. You know, if a tailwind, you can probably sprint from 250 metres out with a tailwind, but with a headwind, you might want to shorten that up 50 metres, you know, because once you reach, you know, your terminal velocity, the higher speed in which you can sprint.
They're looking at each other now. We are getting into cat and mouse. This is now becoming almost like a track sprint. Who's going to jump first? Who's prepared? They've got to be still careful. I mean, that gap is only still a minute back, and they can open the door if it starts to get a bit too casual and they start looking at each other. We know that we saw the chase group. We saw Charlotte Lucas, you know, bridge that gap to about 40 seconds at one point. It's gone back to 55, but she might just had a little bit of a bad patch, and suddenly she's found her legs again. So still plenty to think about. Don't want to get too casual here. Open that door of opportunity into Cambridge now. So around about 3 kilometres left. This is the overpass. This was an opportunity perhaps, but interesting to see that Georgia Williams on the front by the looks of it, and more than happy for Kate McCarthy. And Williams just looks to maybe just put a little bit of power on, but that gap closes back up again. Yes, okay.
That's the top of it there now. So that's one potential attacking opportunity done as they go down the other side now. They'll swing right, and then they'll hit past the unmown lawns, and they're inside the 2Ks to go then. So
2K at the roundabout. Kate McCarthy sitting on the front. Georgia Williams second wheel.
There's been no attack so far, so they're at this moment in time they're happy to come to the line together. But she's not over yet. I still expect something from Kate. Kate cannot come to the finish line without having at least had one go at Georgia.
If you're Kate McCarthy now, surely you just sit here. You're not going to come through again, are you? Charlotte's on the overpass, but I think she might just run out of road at this point. Certainly not over. Certainly still in this game.
Definitely playing cat and mouse up the front then if she's caught back up that time on the flat section.
So 2 kilometres to go, around about 3 minutes of racing. Right-hand turn. That house there in the background is Greg Henderson's. The lawns need to be mowed, Greg. They need to be mowed. The scene. I just thought we'd drop that in. We promised we'd drop that in. You're going to have a whole lot of people driving past taking photographs now, Greg. Now, as we go back to the front of the race, 2K to go. This is the serious side of it. And again, Georgia Williams, you talked about the professionalism of her. She's got 2K to go, but she's still drinking. She's still drinking. That is just pure habit from those professional bike riders. It is so well drilled. It is just almost automatic for them.
Absolutely. It's just habit at this stage, because at 2 kilometres to go, that's probably not going to get into her system. But you know what, it takes out that dry taste in the mouth. She's probably quite nervous because, again, she's got everything to lose here as we come inside 2 kilometres to go. She is the red-hot favourite here.
So Georgia Williams looking to try and win her second New Zealand Road Racing Championship. She won it back in 2018. She didn't get an opportunity last year due to a crash. She would love to retain that jersey, take it back to Europe. And wouldn't that be great for women's cycling, having it in the main peloton?
It's just about to turn left here at the traffic lights, and then they've only got about a kilometre to go. They're definitely inside, well inside a K to go.
A K at the traffic lights.
Here they go.
And this is the traffic light. So 1 kilometre. They've been out pretty much for 120 odd kilometres of the 130K in total. And so the 2 best riders all day are still the best 2 riders with less than a kilometre to go. Now it is cat and mouse, and the experience of Georgia Williams.
Georgia has put herself in second position. Georgia has said, right, I'm not going to take another turn for the rest of the day. You can lead this one out, Kate. So Georgia is in prime position now, second wheel, as they're just looking at each other. They're just really cruising now. They're just going to have a quick check over the shoulder to make sure Charlotte doesn't sneak up from behind, because we are really just creeping into the final now. It's going to be a 2-on-2 sprint, everyone.
Well, they're almost pedestrian-like, aren't they, at the moment, before they just pull the trigger and just launch themselves down this last 200 metres. Kate McCarthy, the people's champion, incredibly brave last year. Very much just endeared herself to the public. Can the amateur rider upset the fancy professional? Now they're starting to play around cat and mouse, Greg Henderson.
Absolutely. Now, again, you get the correct gear selection. You don't want to be stuck too far down the cog. Make sure you're in your 15, 16. You can see Georgia just looking down, making sure she's in the right gears. They make the final turn now.
And down into victory lane. Here they come. Who will take out the 2021 Vantage Elite New Zealand Road Cycling Champion? Less than 600 metres left to ride now. It is Georgia Williams, Kate McCarthy, and what has been just an epic battle between 2 quality riders. Good crowd starting to gather. Who's going to launch? Who's going to go first, Greg Henderson?
Here we go now, 500 metres to go. They just look at each other. Georgia in perfect position. Georgia's just sitting there, just going, Georgia goes early.
The first attack goes, and then it's Georgia Williams that decides to go. McCarthy looks to try and get back on the wheel. Can she try and close it? And it'll be a comfortable victory, I think, for Georgia Williams. She will take it. And
Absolutely.
Georgia Williams takes out her second national road title, but boy, congratulations must go to Kate McCarthy. What heart, what character, what class. 2 absolute warriors. And speaking of warriors, now coming down in 3rd place, and remarkable day to Charlotte Lucas. You just sense it's a matter of time before she ends up winning this race overall, Greg Henderson.
That was a gutsy ride for 3rd place, no question. But Georgia, again, did it absolutely perfectly. She sat on the back there. From a kilometre out, she said, you know what, I'm not touching the front again until I put my arms in the air for the victory. That was a well-executed finish. It was fantastic. It was great to see. Yeah, look, great bike race, wasn't it? And it's good that the favourite wins this, the best rider wins this. Delighted that we're going to see that jersey go back to Europe. But boy, there's so much to like too. It's you know, Kate McCarthy, it's just a great story, isn't it? It does say, look, if you're a domestic rider here in New Zealand, you can compete at the highest level. You can go out and still do this. You can be a part of history. Oh, absolutely. Fantastic. That's 2 years in a row that I've sat alongside you here, and we weren't sure whether Kate McCarthy was going to take the final again. I mean, she's just absolutely impressive, isn't it? Yeah, and that jersey is going to Europe too. And I wonder, we talked about what lessons possibly Kate McCarthy learnt from last year. I wonder the lessons she takes from this year. I'm going to work on my sprinting over the next 12 months. Don't lead out. I'm going to get on the track. I'm just going to work on my sprinting. Yeah. No, I mean, that was just great to watch. And we did talk about that, you know, Georgia, it was hers to lose. Let's not make a silly mistake in the final sprint. And she did everything perfectly. Yeah. And she wins the double too, because she won the time trial on Friday and she backs it up with the road race today. That in itself is a remarkable achievement. Not easy to do. There wouldn't have been many bike riders that have done that, won the time trial and then 2 days later come out and clean up in the road race. And in the dominant way in which she did it. I mean, she said, look, we're going to go up French Pass. We're going to attack French Pass. She did that, and then no one could catch her. She did the same thing back in 2018, so a rare feat for this classy rider, Georgia Williams, who won the road race and the time trial in 2018. She's backed it up 3 years later in 2021, and just a name that thoroughly deserves to be etched in the history of this bike race more than once. she'll be really happy. She came back from Europe. You'll notice a few of the professionals didn't because of the quarantining and things that they had to do, 2 weeks in the hotel. But she's come back. She's got back into her training. George Bennett's done the same thing. So yes, what an absolute.
Yeah, she was the favourite. She was dominant.
Yes.
But also too, just using that race experience, using that race now, it's probably getting really good understanding of how these women's road races have played out in the past. There's not a lot of the trade team dynamics that you see in the men's race, saying, look, you know, I've got a pretty good read on this field. Even if I do go up the road and, you know, and it doesn't come off, I know that I'm strong enough to recover. I know that I've still got a plan B to go to. She hit them hard early, and she went with the right rider. And I wonder, you always wondered, did she have a chat with Kate McCarthy before this race?
Yeah, or like you said, she's got a good
Check one, two.
races, so she probably knows. Okay, if I go up the road with someone like Kate, I know she's going to give me her all. I know I've got someone strong with me all day. And again, it comes down to a situation in these races. It comes down to a situation where the group that goes away becomes stronger than the chasing peloton. As you can see, they're coming in ones and twos now.
Yeah, Jamie Nielsen here in 4th place. A very good ride from Jamie. She a big comeback. You know, she's been sort of maybe not in her best form since really sort of 2017. She's become a mum since then. And so second in the time trial on Friday, 4th today in the road race. Former, you know, individual pursuit champion at the national championship. So another complete ride-up.
Yeah, that's a solid ride, absolutely. So she gave it everything into the bottom of French Pass there in the last lap, and that's just where she got distance on that final climb. But you know, again, another track specialist. Her focus is on Tokyo.
Yeah, Tokyo. Yeah, and good luck to them. And let's just hope that this women's track cycling program too in Tokyo can really sort of take that next step in their development. But look, I hope you are enjoying the coverage of the 2021 Vantage New Zealand Elite Road Cycling Championships. We've still got that men's race to come, so don't go away there. But boy, all credit just needs to go to Georgia Williams. Wonderful, wonderful bike rider, tactically very savvy as well. And we talked about sometimes her role in Europe is not always being at the front end of the bike race. It's more about setting it up for fellow riders. Well, today it's all about her.
Well, she took the tactic part out of the bike race, actually, didn't she? She just took it head on. She said, right, I'm going to go from the holes. If everyone's got the legs, come with me. And as you can see, she was the strongest in the bike race and a very, very deserved winner.
Kate, it's interesting because I have a sort of few people suggesting, you know, do you think that Kate was only ever going to be a passenger all day, or do you think she was genuinely valid?
No, she was genuinely valid, absolutely. She's trained super hard for this race, and you know, she's absolutely so strong to be able to stay with the likes of Georgia the whole day. It's she was there for the win, absolutely. And you know, if Georgia wasn't on top of her game, if Georgia wasn't fit and ready, it would have been a victory to Kate. Don't take it away from Kate McCarthy, that's for sure. It's just because Georgia has absolutely 100% prepared for this bike race, and she wanted this national title. She knows it's so important to take this jersey back to New Zealand. To have that national, to have that silver fern in the peloton. It's great.
Okay, now I understand we've got an interview. Andrew Dewhurst is standing by with Georgia Williams.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Georgia, some athletes come in and favouritism can be a burden. Not for you. How do you feel right now?
I'm so happy. I did have a bit of pressure on my shoulders, but no, I just had to race smart. I knew I had the legs, so yeah, I'm so happy to pull it off.
You raced smart, you raced superbly, but you raced early. Was that earlier than you thought when the two of you went away?
Yeah, a little bit. It was sort of in the back of my mind that I wanted to go early, just because if I waited too long, then the sprinters might have been able to hang on. But yeah, I was a little bit surprised. Like, oh, maybe it's too early, but I knew Kate was super strong, so I knew we would be okay.
I was going to say that when you looked over your shoulder and saw who it was with you, that would have given you some confidence, because Kate loves to go solo, doesn't she?
Yeah, for sure. I watched her race last year and it was so impressive. So yeah, I saw her there and I was like, oh my gosh, perfect breakaway person, and she was awesome out there. Yeah, couldn't have done it without her. It's
not taken for granted that one of our tour riders makes the trip back from Europe and makes that sacrifice. Does this make it all worthwhile?
Yeah, totally. It was a very last-minute decision to come home. I didn't get out of quarantine until the start of December, so yeah, it was a bit of a short build-up and panic training, but no, I'm happy with the form that I came here with.
And just recap the last 200 metres for us. How were you feeling? Did you feel that you had the sprint in the legs?
Yeah, I thought I could get her. Like, I wasn't 100% sure, but no, yeah, I sort of forced her to lead the last sort of 800 metres, so no, I was confident enough.
Great stuff. Congratulations. Well done, Georgia. Another national title to your name with the Vantage Elite Road Race. Well done.
Thanks.
So Georgia Williams there, and we're going to see if Kate will come and join us as well momentarily, because what a part she's played. Come on in, Kate. Congratulations. Last year solo for so long and you missed the podium. Is this some small consolation that you've been brave again and the silver medal behind a world-class rider?
Yeah, it's massive. I'm really happy with today. To come back from last year and get this, it's pretty cool.
And I think that you were probably the rider Georgia wanted to see the most on her wheel, or in fact in front of her wheel. When the two of you went early, was that part of your game plan? Were you looking for a similar game plan to last year?
I was probably not as early, but when you see Georgia go, you want to go with it.
Well, no one else could. That was the problem for them. How do you combine real life and a full-time job and this level of cycling? Georgia's full-time pro. How tough is it for you to stay at this level?
It's been pretty tough. I was lucky I got the last 3 weeks off to work towards this, so it's been a good little training block.
Well, 5th last year, 2nd this year. Lining up next year? Is that too early to ask?
No, definitely lining up next year.
Well done. Great performance and a very brave ride. So our first two there, guys, with their thoughts on what was a stunning race, and of course not forgetting another solo effort for third with Charlotte as well. Back to you guys, Mark and Greg.
Yeah, thank you to Andrew Dewhurst. Interesting there, it was Georgia Williams who started that initial break, so that's gutsy. She was clearly hoping that somebody was going to bridge across and go with her, and didn't necessarily know it was Kate McCarthy, but incredibly lucky that it was Kate.
Two of the strongest in the race. Yeah, what could you ask for? And then it comes up to the rest of the peloton to go, how do I get across to that? It's a very, very tough ask, and I think you'll see now we've got the 3rd place getter ready to have a chat to us. What a gutsy ride that was.
Yeah, okay, so let's throw back to Andrew, because he's got Charlotte Lucas standing by.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. They've said it all in that introduction. Gutsy, determined. How risky is it in a situation like that? You sort of throw all the cards down, don't you, when you try and make the gap and get across?
Yeah, you definitely do. Spend a bit of energy, but it was worth it to try and get the win. And I sort of stayed within 40 seconds or 50 seconds of them. Had Jamie for a wee bit on the flat, so that was awesome, but sort of lost her on the hills, and then I was like, I've got to go and try and catch Georgia and Kate, so yeah, it's a tough day.
Physically, we know it's demanding, but mentally, how tough is it when you are that 40 to 50 seconds? We got a couple of time splits you were closing. You might have been getting those same time splits, then it went back out again. How do you stay with it mentally?
Oh, you try and stay focused, hydrated. At the end of the day, it's just a max effort when you're in that situation.
And the course, just give us your thoughts. A little bit different to last year, a few more rolling hills rather than the one big pinch. Did it make it any tougher today? Obviously very hot as well.
Yeah, I thought the course was awesome actually. It really chose the stronger riders sort of to come through instead of everyone waiting for the big climb like last year. So yeah, no, it was a good competitive race.
Well done. You've earned the afternoon off. Go and put your feet up. Congratulations, guys. Some gutsy riding out there from our top 3 today. That's Charlotte Lucas.
Well, Charlotte Lucas got a big heart, that ability to suffer like she does. That's almost an inherent quality. Few people have that ability to do that, and that's what separates good from great. And that's what separated our top 3 today, just that ability to put it on the line, just to suffer. And you can't see it, but I always say, and I think it was the great cyclist Graham Miller said to me one day, they're riding that hard that you're breathing through your eyelids, that you're just trying to get oxygen in through sort of any orifice at that point, because the heart rate is incredibly high. And what a big future she's got. But the depth of New Zealand women's cycling, we're in a good place, aren't we?
Yeah, that's fantastic, right? You've got to take your hats off, haven't you? Yeah, she said she had Jamie Nielsen there on the flat, and you could see Jamie was doing some big turns on the flat and almost tricked us to thinking that maybe she's in the strongest situation right now. But perhaps they're friends, and she was just giving everything she had because she knew coming into the final time up French Pass, we'll let Lucas go on her own. And yeah, and then all of a sudden it went from 1:05, we got down to 40 seconds, and I was like, wow, they're going to start looking over their shoulder soon. And then there's that game of cat and mouse that they played right at the finish, and then it brought Charlotte Lucas straight back into contention again. It was probably only 30 seconds at the finish.
Yeah, just recapping, if you have just joined us, that Georgia Williams has won her second National Road Championship title, winning the double after having won the time trial on Friday. She did the same thing back in 2018. Kate McCarthy, the People's Champion, the Warrior, the full-time police officer, and one of the most remarkable rides, finishing second. And then a superstar in the making. You've got to say a future winner of this race, Charlotte Lucas, rounding out our top three. Greg, we are going to bring live coverage of the men's race a little bit later on this afternoon. So let's just have a wee chat on that. It is an opportunity to preview that race. We've got Black Spoke Racing, this sort of trade team based here in New Zealand, supposed to be racing on the Continental Tour in Asia and stuff if it wasn't for COVID. Then you've got George Bennett, Finn Fisher Black, who we so desperately, I think people would love to see the jersey go to Europe at the front of the peloton. How do you see this playing out? How did 2 beat 14?
It's a tough ask, it really is. Because they will be riding as teams. You see, it won't be an individual event. They're going to ride as teams. It's so important for Black Spoke to win this race. You know, for what it means as a national team. You know, a national professional team. To take that national jersey would be just fantastic. They did it a couple of days ago with Aaron Gate winning the time trial, and yeah, they've got numbers. They really have. So they have the potential to put, when any breakaway goes, they have the potential to put 2, 3, even 4 riders in each breakaway move. So they've got then from that breakaway, they then have options. They've got 14 riders in the race.
And you've been recently involved in the New Zealand Cycling Classic there with sort of a New Zealand development team. Who are maybe some of the other young riders that we should be keeping an eye on, who maybe it's not their time just yet, but certainly are stars of the future, certainly riders that we could end up seeing in the Grand Tours, in Europe?
Mate, there's so many to name. I mean, there's one name that we're all sort of not really talking a lot about. It's that young Corbin Strong. He just won the New Zealand Cycle Classic. He's here on his own, riding for his SEG professional team, but he's World Points Race champ. He knows how to race. Again, it's not a major climbing circuit. It's a tough circuit, and it's really tough. The whole circuit. There's not a lot of time for recovery. So again, it's a circuit that really suits, you know, that punchy sort of rider and that powerful sort of rider. So Corbin Strong's one to look at. You've got the Christensen brothers. You know, they're so strong and they're so clever when they ride. But I think really, honestly, it's going to come down to a numbers game. And with Black Spoke, with the numbers that they have, if they play everything correctly and do everything by the rule book and you know, by the playbook, I should say.
Well, it's their race to lose. I mean, if you look at cycling, you look at the importance of the team, you look at numbers. I mean, even in a break, 2 riders on 1, 2's always going to beat 1. It's their race to lose, isn't it? I mean, the pressure is on them.
That's what I was trying to get across, is if you can play by the playbook. You know, if something goes up the road, put some numbers on it. Put 2 or 3 of your bike riders, and like you said, 1 rider against 3 or 4 is very, very difficult to beat.
Okay, now I do have results of the under-23 category of the elite women's race. And so in first place, it was Georgia Danford, now 21 years of age, of Auckland. She races overseas with Velo Project, very good sprinter. She won in Cambridge here for a round of the Dynamo Teams Championship, and she was 10th at the Gravel and Tar. So congratulations to her, Georgia Danford, on taking out the New Zealand under-23 women's title. In second place was Henrietta Christie. Now, it's first time racing under 23 Elite Nationals, Calder Stewart winner and Dynamo Challenger, so another name to keep an eye on in the future. But it also just shows, too, just the tempo that was set up front by our top 3 elite women, for the fact that there was such a large gap to under 23 girls.
Yeah, I mean, the wind's picked up now, the temperature's picked up, so you had all those environmental factors coming into it also. So again, it just makes what was already a very, very tough race, just makes it that little bit harder, because you've got to take real control of nutrition and hydration.
And also just want to say too, in third place, Anna Marie Lip, part of the Velo Project, out of Canterbury, just 20 years of age, so a good Christchurch rider. And she is another one. She's actually ridden the Youth Herald Sun Tour in the past. So congratulations to our under-23 women for 2021. And I understand too, I've just been told that Georgia Danford actually did also ride for the Velo Project. So, some good young riders coming through, and they would have learned a lot today.
Yeah, absolutely. It's and like we mentioned at the top of the broadcast, it's not about the depth. Sorry, it's not about how many we had. It's like the depth. We had
the quality.
the quality. We had such good bike riders, and you learn, and it's just an honour to line up beside someone.
But also too, we had a number of notable athletes missing because of COVID that have stayed in Europe. You got Neen Fisher-Black, as you mentioned, Ella Harris, as we talked about, Michaela Harvey, 5th in the Giro d'Italia, and then we had the triathlete who last year, it would have been interesting to hear in this race today, Teresa Adam, who is incredibly strong, New Zealand Ironman champion, Asia Oceania Ironman champion, rode brilliantly 3 weeks ago at the Tauranga Half Ironman, down with the flu, so not in this race. So you throw those athletes into the mix on top of the current crop. And again, as we've alluded to, the sport is in good hands.
Exactly, and it may have easily changed the dynamics of the race too, because if you had two up the road and you had that sort of depth back in the peloton to help with the chase, maybe they didn't stay away to the end. Maybe the whole race dynamics changed. Maybe everyone's tactics changes a little bit. So that's the thing we're going to find with the men's road race. You're going to have the depth. You're going to have the numbers. So again, there's a whole different range of tactics that come into play now in the men's road race. And if you go up the road and you've got an under 23 with you, you can use those riders and help them gain an advantage on the peloton as if you're an elite category and you're up the road with the under 23 riders. So it's going to be a fantastic race later on this afternoon.
Yeah, and sitting alongside of me, one of the greats of New Zealand cycling, and Greg Henderson, bringing you all the expert comments, bringing you all of his knowledge, all of his expertise, wonderful insight that he does provide too. And we will bring you live coverage of that men's race, the latest parts of that. And boy, I've got to say, I've got goosebumps thinking about it. I know we're waiting for them to come back through town for the second lap shortly, and we'll get a little bit of idea on how that dynamic plays out. Now 1:15 we'll bring you live coverage of that men's race. So 1:15 in around just over an hour's time we will be back. We will bring you live coverage of that men's race. Don't go away, because it will be an absolute cracker. It will just be, well, hopefully live up to what we saw last year when we just saw one of the great national men's road races, one of the most courageous and gutsiest performances we've ever seen from a rider in George Bennett, who came up just short, and that national road title jersey went to Shane Archbold.
Well, if you think about 2 days ago, coming up just short, he finished second in the individual time trial by 0.9 of a second, or 0.7 of a second. So silver medal again, following on from his 2020 time trial. He just missed out on the gold medal there. And then again in the road race in 2020, just fell short of a fantastic ride by Shane Archbold, actually. Like, you got to take your hats off to Shane. He rode it perfectly. So maybe the course does suit George a little better this year. It's harder more often. Okay, we don't have that huge Mangakawa climb that could potentially blow the peloton to pieces in one hit. But I think if I'm George Bennett, I'm thinking, right, I need to hit these guys, and I need to hit them early, but I need to also hit them often. Yeah,
it's funny. I spoke to George just when he was signing in, and I said, look, just give us an idea on sort of your power that you're pumping, and it's all based on the number of watts per kilogram of body weight. He said he's at about 5 watts per kilogram for the entire race last year, which is pretty good numbers, eh?
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
Just put it in context for people because they won't understand what that means. What is a normal rider? So I'm saying, you take a rider who's 70 kilograms.
Well, if you look at it this way, I've retired now for 4 years and I still go okay on the bike, and my watts per kilogram at threshold is 3.2. And he's done 5 for 5 hours. It's like,
that is remarkable, which means what's his peak power at is remarkable.
Exactly.
When he's at absolute best on the rivet versus those little moments and those little lulls and the first part of the race where you're sitting in the peloton and you're not really using a lot of watts. So you'd think how much that actually plays into the overall average. So for a large chunk of that race, he's probably almost at 6 watts per kilogram, which is remarkable.
Sure.
58, 59 kilograms, George Bennett. So looking forward to that too, part of the Jumbo Visma professional trade team, one of the best hill climbers in the world. I think he officially ranked about 26th or 28th in the world, but doesn't really sort of mean too much. And then of course young Finn Fisher-Black, who is just another future superstar as well. So plenty of live cycling coverage for you. I hope you are enjoying the coverage. Beautiful day here in Cambridge. If you do live in the Waikato sort of Bay of Plenty region, you've still got time. Make your way, is it Taylor Road here, I think, in Cambridge, isn't it? Just outside of the school. And do get yourself along. Wonderful concession stands. There's a whole lot of former legends. I saw the great Jack Swart wandering around. You've got Stephen Cox, some guy called Greg Henderson who finished like second in the men's road race like about 4 or 5 times and never won it. Won a lot of other things, that guy Greg Henderson, though, didn't he?
Oh.
They do want to go for the podium.
Okay.
The podium's not far away.
All right, we're going to stick with the coverage. We will bring you the podium presentation. Andrew Dewhurst with that. You cyclists have got thick skins. You don't mind taking a bit of a ribbing, eh?
No.
I mean, I've ridden a few of those bike races, and you guys are not exactly particularly friendly to sort of all the newbies and all the nice guys. You're sort of,
I was one of the nice guys in the peloton. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Everybody
You were
loved
the
me.
one that put the pump through my front wheel? No, it wasn't you, Greg?
No, it's probably a race I really would have loved to win the nationals, you know. But again, it's really when you come here without a team, it's really difficult to win. It's because as a top professional in Europe, you do get marked. You know, whenever you want to go up the road or you want to attack on a climb, the whole peloton thinks it's the perfect time to go as well. So you don't get that freedom. So you have to be very, very patient when in the nationals, and you have to almost wait 3 hours. I used to wait for 3 hours until the rider's leg started to get tired. That I knew that my old pro leg would start to keep firing.
Talking about this course, and in all seriousness, Greg, you know, if you're at your very, very best, this would be a sort of course that would suit you as a sprinter, because while you got French Pass, they're 4-minute type climbs. They're not, long climbs, and you've got the ability, therefore, to be able to stay in contention.
Absolutely, that's exactly what I was saying. Like when we go full gas up there, it is 4.5, maximum 5 minutes if we're going flat stick up there, and that's just not enough time for a pure climber to put massive distance into those powerful, punchy riders. Yeah. So, and it just depends on the fitness that you bring into this time of the season. I used to train really, really hard for the nationals because I knew it would set me up in good stead for the rest of the season anyway. So, and we had the perfect weather, so it was just lovely to be able to train long and train hard. Whereas in Europe right now, if they're not in lockdown, they're trying to train in snow. So it was always an advantage coming back home and getting to train in the beautiful summer. Yeah,
and that's it is disappointing that a number of our top tour riders are not back here because of the travel restrictions. And Patrick Bevan, and you know a little bit about Patrick, and I'll get you to explain what that relationship is now with Patrick. But he's a guy that's very much set up for this course too, isn't he? Can climb, can sprint, can time trial.
Yeah, absolutely. He's so we just signed him this year in Israel Startup Nation, and so he's one of the very, very strong time trialists. But not only is he a very strong time trialist, he's that punchy, powerful climber type sprinter also. And you think of the likes of Simon Guerin's winning stages of the Tour de France, or Daryl Impey, those they're fast. They're not necessarily bunch sprinters, but they can get up those really sharp, punchy climbs, and that's what we've hired Patrick Bevan for. Not only his time trialing abilities, but his ability to win in small group bunch sprints, and then take maybe even take the jersey in smaller tours. So it's really nice to have him on board this year.
And you've got Chris Froome as well.
Yep, we hired Chris Froome again for this year, so that's another big asset to Israel Startup Nation. It'll be interesting to see what he brings to the team. He's already bring obviously a lot of publicity and a lot of coverage from the media. There's that step that we've had to learn to adapt to already. But no, he's the consummate professional. He's doing a lot of rehab at the moment, and it's funny you should mention that, because even though he's come from a team like Ineos Grenadier, he's actually has a really massive muscle imbalance, and so it's quite interesting to know that he's still working on rehab after his big smash that he had a year or so ago now. So we've got our top physiologists and our top physios working with him. He's at the Red Bull Center right now in California, still working on rehab.
So the Israel Startup Nation, what give us the story behind that? I mean, what is the message? Who are they?
Yeah, so essentially it is an Israeli team, and they call it the Startup Nation because apparently the most startup businesses come out of Israel, Tel Aviv. It's something I never knew, so it was something I learned about when I joined the team, and yeah, that's backed by two Israeli billionaires, and it's an ever-evolving team. We're hiring on some big names now, and we're looking forward to the future.
Okay, so Greg Henderson there. Now we are going to go to the official side of this National Women's Road Race Championship, where we recognise and honour sporting excellence with our podium presentation. Over to you, Andrew Dewhurst.
Thank you, Mark. Yes, indeed. Welcome, everyone, to the presentation for both the Under-23 and Elite Women's categories here at the Vantage National Road Championships. What a couple of stunning races we have seen. Before we welcome our podium for both of those age categories, we have two national awards to present. and one is here in person, one we will acknowledge. The awards to be presented by Erin Criglington, Cycling New Zealand Road and Track Panel. Erin, welcome up onto the stage. Our first award is for the Junior Female Road Cyclist of the Year and also winning Emerging Talent of the Year. These words about our winner. We've been impressed with your consistency across the compressed 2020 season, with your victories at the National Time Trial Champs and the Yunka Tour being highlights alongside your Silver National Road Championship. Ladies and gentlemen, your winner, Henrietta Christie. Stand on the top step there for a photo. Well done, Henrietta. Congratulations. And we also would like to acknowledge, in her absence away in Europe, the Female Road Cyclist of the Year. And again, Cycling New Zealand's comments, impressed with the consistency across the year in the biggest races on the women's calendar, with the win in the youth category at the Giro d'Italia being one of the big highlights. We would have awarded it to her today, but as I've mentioned, she is away in Europe. But please acknowledge the Female Road Cyclist of the Year, Michaela Harvey. Ladies and gentlemen, now welcome to the award ceremony for the Vantage Under-23 Women's Road Race National Championship. Medals will be presented by Matt Archibald, and we will also have a presentation of the Perry Cup by Ben Blair, Chair of the, or General Manager of Perry Modular Homes. We welcome our podium for the Under-23 National Road Race Championship. In third place, and the winner of the bronze medal representing Velo Project, Anna-Marie Lipp. In second place, and winner of the silver medal representing Velo Project, Henrietta Christie. In first place, the winner of the gold medal and the 2021 Vantage Under-23 Women's Road Race National Champion, representing Andy Schlett Racing, Georgia Danford. Georgia also will receive the Perry Cup, as mentioned, presented by Ben Blair, General Manager of Perry Modular Homes. If you would, Ben. Ladies and gentlemen, show your appreciation, please. The podium for the 2021 Under-23 Women's Road Race. And there's some bubbly on the way. So loosen the wire, ladies, and pop those champagne corks, and let's celebrate in style. Always a good, there we go. Better late than never. Always the tip, keep your eyes closed with the champagne. If you can, just arm in arm, ladies. One more photo. Put your hands together one more time. The Under-23 women. Congratulations, all three of you. Wonderful racing today. A quick word, if we can. Georgia, sorry, before you disappear. Come on over to me here and we'll reshuffle things while we're chatting. Congratulations. How tough was that out there today?
Oh, it was pretty tough. I think, the second time over the climb, I was really thinking, oh, there's another lap. And I think at the top of the last climb, I was having like a full-blown, just couldn't breathe. And I had like Henrietta and Anna looked at me, and I think they went for another whack. They're like, oh, she's going, but then she just crawl back on, so it was pretty exciting. And then I had my teammate Riley at the very end do I think the best lead out. It was pretty exciting.
Yeah, sprint finish, you can't do it without teammates, can you? So team effort, but individual honours. Where does this rank for you in your fledgling career? Pretty good?
Oh, it's my first ever, it's my last year Under-23, but the first ever time I've attempted this Road Nationals. And I think it was a pretty hilly one. So I think it's given me heaps of confidence that I actually got over the hills today. So it was real exciting.
Fantastic. Put your hands together one more time for your champion. Congratulations. Go and enjoy the victory. Take that cup and the rest of the champagne. Georgia Danford. And we now move on and a welcome again everyone to the awards ceremony for the 2021 Vantage Elite Women's Road Race as we welcome our podium onto the stage. Put your hands together please everyone. Medals will be presented by Matt Archibald from Vantage Windows and Doors. In third place, and winner of the bronze medal, representing DNA Cycling, Charlotte Lucas. In second place, and the winner of the silver medal, representing Cabjack's Castelli Custom, Kate McCarthy. In first place, the winner of the gold medal, and your 2021 Vantage Elite Women's Road Race National Champion, representing Team Bike Exchange, Georgia Williams. Georgia will also receive the Bev May Trophy, presented by Kevin Burgess on behalf of Grassroots Trust. The photo opportunity before the champagne, ladies and gentlemen. And now here comes, oh, we'll get them close together if we can. Couple of photos and now the champagne. Thank you, Matt. You watch Matt run. Share the celebration with them, folks. Put your hands together. Your podium in the Vantage Elite National Women's Road Race. One more quick chat, Georgia, for some of these people that might have been out on course earlier and just got back. Congratulations. You've got the bubbly, you've got the cup, the medal, the jersey. It's all real. Sinking in again. Second time. How does it feel?
Yeah, second time's just as good, if not better. Yeah, I'm super happy.
And now you have had half an hour or so. How are the legs as a reflection of the effort that you put in out there? How are you feeling?
Yeah, I almost got cramp when I sat down there before, but no, they're pretty tired, but a few days to recover now, so that's all right.
Fantastic. And what now? We know you've come back for this, but how soon do you depart again, and what's on the calendar for you?
Yeah, packing up tomorrow and then off on Tuesday back to Europe.
Fantastic. We wish you the best of luck, don't we, folks, as she heads away back to Europe. Congratulations, Georgia Williams, your champion. Thanks, everyone. That concludes our podium presentations for the under-23 and elite women. We'll turn our attention now to the men's race in just a little while as they continue on their journey in the blistering hot sun here in Cambridge.